Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 12th Community Development Committee meeting for Upper Moreland Township Board of Commissioners. We'd like to start with a moment of silent meditation. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Call the meeting to order. Do you have any announcements? The Board of Commissioners met in executive session today to discuss some personnel. Real estate. Thank you. Okay. Present with us this evening is Alex Balmer from County Law, Jim Hirsch from Gilmore & Associates, Commissioner Peruzzi, Commissioner Spear, and Commissioner McFatridge, Township Manager Matt Canlon. Go right into the approval of minutes.
I have no questions on it.
I'm good too.
Okay. So good. Put those into the record. All right, we're going to skip proposed development of Cloud Car Wash for right now and jump down to new business. Review for a waiver of permit of other fees for the school district for upcoming projects, intermediate school. Is someone from here? Come on up. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Not a problem. So we're converting the TLC2 into 2 classrooms.
Could you introduce yourself again, please?
I'm sorry, Andrew Greco, Facilities Director for the Upper Moreland School District. The TLC2, where we hold our board meetings, is being converted into 2 classrooms, an occupational therapy room and an ES/AS room. Due to the growth of the number of kids we have, so we got to make more classroom space.
Right.
Once 509 is done, we'll be having our board meetings there. But
where's the board meeting's going to move?
right now, we're going to have them in the cafetorium of the intermediate school until 509 is ready. So.
Okay. Okay. Do we have proposed plans for this?
Yes, everything's been submitted already.
Okay.
I'm just waiting on final permits. Third-party electrician was a little delayed on.
Before we take action or make a recommendation for that, I have to ask that I wasn't aware of like what happened with the roof at the gym.
And no, it wasn't the roof. It was a hot water coil burst.
What was it?
Hot water coil in the AC unit burst.
So we never got a request to waive permits or inspections for that? Did we have them?
I wasn't told I needed to. I was all through insurance, and my staff at work removed the old coil and installed the new coil. There was no unit replacement or anything like that. It was just the replacement of just the coil, the internal part of the unit.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to ask that question. It was on my mind since I didn't realize until election day that something happened.
Yeah, when we had that flash freeze, I had a couple coils burst. Insurance obviously paid for everything, but.
I understand it was all covered by insurance.
But yeah, it was all covered by insurance because the pipes froze just from that flash freeze and hot water tried to come through and the coils burst.
All right, thank you for answering those questions.
Not a problem.
Code enforcement has the plans, and we have a proposal here. Anybody have any problem with this?
Now, we're just waiving the permit fee. They would still have to pay if we have an inspection from an outsider.
Right.
So,
But Bob's got to go over there.
that's ours.
Right. And then,
Okay.
like third party, like electric or something, you have to pay for that, yeah. Anybody from the public have any questions about this? Okay, we will recommend this to the Board of Commissioners and
Thank you.
continue with this.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Not a problem.
Okay, item B under new business, request for a waiver to install 3 amusement devices within 300 feet of residential property, All Night Deli, 811 Easton Road. Someone here? Okay, we're gonna table that.
Just for anything in advance, I am not in favor of it. We're putting all of these things next to residential houses.
That one's pretty close. That's the closest request we've had. Even though our apartment's right next door, but it's abutting the property. But again, table that one till next month. Old business. Single-use plastic bag ban. We've had a lot of, Matt, you sent the letter out. We got a lot of feedback from businesses. We got pro and con. And there's actually some discussion items here. You guys get to review some of those letters? I was surprised about many of the businesses that came out in favor of it. I am hoping that we get letters of support from our state senator and our state representative. I'd like to know what is going on at the state level, if anybody can answer that question. I've said before that I'm kind of disappointed in, we do a great job residentially with recycling. I go visit businesses in Upper Moreland Township. They don't even have a recycle can for bottles and paper. I'm discouraged by that. I understand all this microplastic, what do you call them? Particles that get into everything, but I also have reached out to people I know that are in the plastic industry and asked them what they're doing about this, how they changing. So there is a lot of movement in that direction. It doesn't seem like a hardship for any of these big box corporations like that we have several in our township. And they just are looking for direction on, okay, you have it, we're ready to go, we'll do it. One of the questions we got from one of the small companies that are local is, hey, I have a big supply of these. Am I going to be able to exhaust what I have? And we'd like to encourage that kind of, practice for if this gets passed. The thing with the straws, I don't know why that's such a big deal. I actually had a conversation with people driving to Europe, flying to Europe, and they actually are using wooden straws in Europe. I'm shocked. So I know the board doesn't have a unanimous support on this, so I'd like to have some conversations about why not.
Because I don't feel like drinking through a plastic straw. They get soggy, or a paper straw when they get soggy.
Okay, so that's why I brought up the wood straw, especially for you.
They also make metal ones. Most places go to metal.
Okay.
Well, they don't disappear either.
Mike's. Everybody's got their.
Mine's on.
Kevin's the only one following directions, all right.
Dealing with talking. So,
And what are you going to do with, like Wawa, they just sent theirs, and they have no problem at the register. They have a problem with it whenever they have hot food. They put them in a plastic bag in case it spills at the counter. That is not when they leave. That's from when they make the sandwiches. That was in one of the letters. She said that was,
yes,
and I think they are allowed to do that in Jersey because it's not at the register. So there was questions from them on that. Also, I guess, my thing is right now, the only thing they can use is paper. When you take something out of a store?
Well, the ordinance permits them to charge for the use of paper.
I'm just thinking bags rip and stuff like that
So,
too, so
look.
if it gets wet, that's all.
The whole idea here is to encourage people to bring their own bag in.
I agree with that.
Or to not use a bag if it's not necessary.
No bag, right. But just for people to get in the habit of reusing.
Yeah.
That's okay, you don't have to appease me.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm
I said, we can call the vote anytime we want. Yeah, I have no problem.
No, just, I get that. What would it take to change this ordinance to get you to vote for it? Not happening, right?
Well, definitely no straws
Okay.
in there is one. The other is, it's different in this state. In Maryland and stuff, they charge you 5, 10, 10 cents, 15% or cents for a bag. They are giving you a plastic bag, not a paper bag, for that amount, in other states. So you're not paying the 15%, so they get to buy paper bags instead. You're paying, so in other words, and again, I've used this several times. I go to Home Depot every day for my job. I could walk out with one day, one item, once a week, maybe I'll be walking by the plumbing and I need 25 little half-inch couplers. What am I carrying them in? I don't know I'm getting them until I'm in there.
So just like when you went to a plumbing supply house, you would take either have like a Domino sugar bag or a coffee bag,
They usually give you a box.
box, you do have boxes, you're right. We're gonna get this out of committee, so.
Good. And I'll vote to get it out of committee. I have no problem getting it out of committee.
So I don't know if the township sent a letter to, Matt, was it all local businesses within the township?
I'm sorry?
Was it all businesses within the township?
Yes.
Okay, so
All of the retail.
all the retail businesses?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and just so that's known by the public too, right? Because we've been up here deliberating this. We have our own opinions. We've notified all of retail businesses within the township, and we did actually receive a lot of comment back. We also received a lot of comment back from residents who saw this published in our newsletters. The number one reason why not to do it was convenience. It's an inconvenient issue if you were to take plastic bags away from me as a constituent here. Very, 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 very little comment about the monetary implications of doing this, and that's from businesses and residents. The businesses who mentioned monetary reasons said, I've recently purchased a lot of bags. Will there be a delayed period for the implementation of this ordinance if it were to be passed? So that way I could at least have time to finish out that stock that I have. Many of the large businesses either didn't comment, or if they did, they said they were already going forward with these things anyway. And we had a smattering, I would say, I didn't calculate it, so I don't want to give out statistics and quantities, but there were more acceptances for this passing than people against it. So
That's true. I was very surprised by that, yes. That, when people take the time to make a comment about something, if they're not upset about something, they rarely comment. So just the fact that there was positive reinforcement for it was very surprising to me.
Yeah, and that was the point. So, in my mind, in my opinion towards this, to continue a practice that is known to be hazardous because of the inconvenience that it's causing me is an irresponsible decision. And so I'm 100% for the passing of this, and I encourage all of us to look at other options if this were to be passed as to how to live our lives in a cleaner, more responsible way. for our environment, for ourselves, even our personal selves are affected by this. So I've made my opinion clear on this since the get-go. I'm 100% for it. I think we've worked with our solicitor to draft up an ordinance that makes sense, and that is, generally accepted by those in the community. So I think we've done some good work in putting this together, so thank you.
Okay. And I support it the way it is, but my problem with this whole industry-wide acceptance of plastic, not the single-use bag, but other things that are identified as single-use. The lunch bags, the trash bags we do, I'd like to see some effort going in that direction to, we talk about how bad the plastic is. Well, all those other pieces that are ending up at the landfills are still, wherever they are still contributing to the problem. So I don't think, like I said, and it's reflected in the minutes, it's a big celebration that we have an achievement here. It's just a first step, but I want to see what we're doing statewide, at the county level, nationally. Single-use plastic bags for sandwiches, for trash bags, for leaf bags in some communities. Here's one for you. I have a 1-year-old grandchild, and I told my son, you can't use those plastic wrapped diapers anymore. You gotta go back to cloth. It didn't work. And I wasn't paying for this. I would, but it's just an example of how we've accepted plastic all the way around, and that, they are absolutely single use. There's no doubt about it. So I think that I'll support this ordinance, but I'd like to see, a continued effort to really blow this up statewide and nationally. I've reached out to state representative and state senator, and I'm hoping I get a letter of support, before we vote on this in July. Public comment.
Yes. Good evening, Barbara Rothermel, 1112 Division Avenue. Got to tell you, I'm opposed to the ban, and let me tell you why. The spring newsletter stated that the purpose of the ordinance is to reduce the number of single-use plastic bags in our community because they historically, and I think that's the key word, historically, have been a big contributor to trash and litter in our community. Got to tell you, since the newsletter came out, I've been looking for wayward plastic bags in the environment. Haven't seen any. I've seen styrofoam, I've seen Wawa coffee cups, I've seen other plastic wrappings, but no plastic bags. There are a couple of factors that I don't know whether you consider it or not. You believe these bags are single use. I would disagree. I think that a lot of people have multiple purposes for them, whether it's to line a trash can, dog waste, whatever. If you ban a single-use plastic bag, people are simply going to find another alternative. They're going to use pet waste bags or small trash bags. And actually, if you've researched this, you know that studies bear that point out. So in the end, you've really gained nothing. I think most people today understand that single-use plastic bags are not good for the environment. So when I go to the food store, I pack my reusable plastic bags, and I gotta tell you, when I look around, other people are doing the same thing. So I think people have already bought into this concept. I would tell you that, as you already know, the local Giant has reusable plastic bags available for sale, and those that need a bag can certainly buy it. It's convenient, it's accessible. I will point out, though, that Giant Food Stores has something that other retail establishments don't have. They have a receptacle, as you noted, Kevin, to recycle plastic bags. They have it at every entrance. Again, from what I can see, I go to Giant a lot, those receptacles are always full. That indicates that people are recycling their plastic bags. I know you don't want to hear it, but I'll tell you what will happen if the ban goes through. And I know a lot of people say, oh, other areas are doing it. That's fine. But the reality is, there is no or little impact on the environment. If stores begin using paper bags, that has environmental impact too. So that's not a realistic alternative. You see these reusable plastic bags? Guess what? They're harder to break down in the environment than the single-use bag. So I don't know what we would be accomplishing. I got to tell you that you can also expect a lot of angry taxpayers. So Jersey rolled this out, and I get it. There's an impact to marine life. Absolutely get it, which we don't really have so much here. But I got to tell you, when I was talking to the store manager when they rolled it out, he told me that people took it out on the store employees. You know, some people were so ticked off at being told that they had to buy a reusable plastic bag. They started arguments. They left their groceries on the conveyor belt, so everybody was inconvenienced. And I know you brought up the convenience point. It stopped the whole checkout process, because think about it, guys. People have to leave the line to go buy their bag, and they have to hope that after they buy their bags, they bought the right amount. So it's just, I know convenience isn't the primary issue, but there's an impact there. I would also say that with businesses and consumers still reeling from inflation and COVID, there is a monetary impact. So in summary, I would say by replacing this with this, there's still a huge environmental impact because plastic doesn't break down. And perhaps what we might want to consider is mandating that larger retail establishments have a recycling program in place. I know that Giant talks about they make benches, and they donate benches from the bags that they recycle. But I did notice that when I was at Walmart, they don't have a recycling container. And there's, you know, that would be one place to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice seeing you again. So I didn't want to use anybody's name, like Giant or Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot. So now that I mentioned about almost all of them. I'm intrigued by what you see at a Giant gas station when you're standing there and getting all of the advertisements about what they do recycling, how many trees they plant. I haven't got a response from them about what happens to those plastic bags, because my understanding is they're not recyclable and they end up in the trash. That's number one. Number two, when I alluded to a couple of the retailers that don't even have a recycled container at their, it's Giant. So,
It doesn't have a recycling container?
yeah. I said, no, for a plastic bottle, for paper,
Right.
you know? So I said, look, that's the law in this township. You need to get one. Now, I'm not playing cop anywhere. So I'm not going to follow up with that. Just next time I get gas, I hope they have one. Or next time I go to the store, I hope they have it. But there's a lot of research going on with that. And I hear what you're saying, and that's how I felt about it too. Like, how do we do this enforcement unilaterally? And how do I make that distinction between the single-use plastic bag for my trash and the single-use for, well, it's free. Nobody's spending any money on it, except for the retailers. I'm still going to support it, Bob. I appreciate you coming here and mentioning it. And then there's a lot of attitude like that. I look at the states that charge a nickel for a plastic bottle. I'm curious how that's evolving. What are they doing better than what we're doing? So I had talked about putting something into this ordinance that says, hey, if the state doesn't do something in 3 years, it would go away. The ordinance would go away. We didn't do that. But because I'm hoping that if we do vote for this ordinance, that the state does indeed step up and make it statewide. Just because that's the education, and that will get the people to bring their own bags. They don't have to be, I have cloth bags that I take to the store. So, you know, when that breaks down really good. It's holes in it, goes in the trash, and then a mouse makes a house. You know?
Circle of life, Kevin.
Come on up.
Good evening, nice to see you all again. First, I want to thank you for taking your reusable bag to the store, because that's exactly what we're trying to achieve. So thank you, because that's really, this is all about consumer behavior changing. It's not about switching from one bag to another. It's not about producing more bags. In this township alone, we go through 9.5 million single-use plastic bags a year. So if we can just get those out of our environment, it's a huge win.
Never going to avoid plastic, it's pervasive.
That's what we're trying to
Hold on,
a little bit
hold
of
on.
it out of our environment and take a step at a time. So I appreciate everything that you mentioned.
Could you please reintroduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, Suzette Munley, resident of Upper Moreland for 30 years.
Advocate.
Advocate and a speaker for Beyond Plastics.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Commissioner Prowse and Commissioner Spearing, for your leadership on this. Appreciate it. I'm just going to make a quick comment about the ordinance, if I may. It's really well-written, so thank you all for putting the time and effort into it. If I could make one suggestion on section 180-4 and 180-5. So in 180-4, there is a mandatory uniform charge of 10 cents for a recyclable paper bag. And in 180-5, under reusable bags, it seems like it gives the retail establishment the ability to charge for a reusable bag, which could be a cloth bag or a nicer bag that you could use more often. It doesn't say how much. And so we're just going to make the recommendation that for consistency's sake, that we treat those two sections the same and set a price floor. So you have to charge a minimum of 10 cents, but you have the ability to charge more if you want to sell nicer bags that are reusable more times. Because ultimately, as I was saying before, we're trying to change people's behavior. We're not trying to put a bunch of, like if under 180-5, it would give places the ability just to hand out free bags. We're not trying to get more bags out there. We're trying to get less by convincing people to bring your own. And so we're looking to reduce waste overall. So if we can treat those consistently, I think it would be less confusing for the retailers and less confusing for the consumer, and then still give people flexibility to charge more and keep that money if that's what works best for them.
So I want to ask you something about that.
Yeah.
So all these stores, it's a product on the shelf. You can go buy a bag for $1.
Sure.
You know, some of them are 50 cents.
Or it's at checkout, yeah.
Right, so why do I need to include that in the ordinance? It's already a product that they're retailing.
You don't have to. It's just a recommendation so that the retailer knows how to deal with both. It's not a separate piece, and the consumer understands that they're paying for a bag that they don't bring to the store, regardless of what it is, that there's a minimum 10-cent charge, but not locking people into 10 cents. It could be more.
Giant charge is $2.49 per bag.
Okay.
Was your point that we don't want institutions to just hand out reusable bags willy-nilly, because then we have
Yes, it happened with Target in Philly. Yeah, so they were just handing out plastic bags, which is the opposite effect of what we wanted to have happen. Yeah.
Okay.
They were handing out reusable plastic bags?
They were thicker plastic bags that qualified
Yeah,
under.
Acme went through a whole program of doing that. I have 3 of them.
Yeah.
Pretty good, actually. The EAC had it was part of one of the meetings where one of our members of the EAC had the reusable plastic bag from Acme that was heavier gauge, and it was absolutely reusable.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it? You don't want to change nothing else?
It seems like we have majority in favor, so I'm thrilled.
So let me ask you, what has your organization been doing at the state level?
Well, it's trying to, right now, the biggest possibilities in New York, the state of New York, with an extended producer responsibility bill. And so that puts the onus back on the people that produce all of this, that if you make it, basically you take it, meaning that you have to deal with it at the end of its life cycle. And so they are the closest state to pass something of real value that could be used as a model for the rest of the states nationwide. And so we're hopeful that that will make progress so that there's a playbook for all the other states to follow. But these municipal and township ordinances play a huge role in the state looking at this as something that can be done because you prove that it can be done in all these townships. So if you all vote on this in July, Upper Marion and Lower Marion are also in Montgomery County looking to vote in the same 30, 45 days. So we could have a trifecta passing in this area. And there's already 15, 16 municipalities that have passed in our area and at least another 15 locally that are looking to do the same. So it has a lot of traction. People understand that plastic is polluting our environment and our health, and recycling is a myth. Those areas or stores that gather those single-use plastic bags, they end up either being burned or they end up in landfills, and there's tons of studies that show that.
Okay. So I have one more topic I was saving. And a lot of our retail businesses are suffering because they compete with Amazon, or Prime, or whoever else is mailing stuff out.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff comes in single-use plastic bags.
Yeah, so we have, there's a whole campaign through Beyond Plastics about contacting and writing Amazon and demanding change. And this was the first week on Amazon when I looked at it that you had an option to check a box that said reduce packaging, meaning that they wouldn't put it inside something other than what the item was already packaged in. That's not exactly all that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to get rid of the plastic, the bubble wrap, the air-filled pouches, all of those things. So when we do talks, we give people links.
The bubble wrap balloon, I love that stuff.
Okay, but it's, but trying to take all those steps, and Amazon is a huge polluter, obviously.
Right, so.
So there's campaigns
So
fighting all of that.
We're telling Target, we're not a Target here, but you can't use a single-use bag, but then Amazon's selling the same product, and they're bubble wrapping it and put a single-use bag.
Yeah, and
And they're delivering it to Upper Moreland.
Sure, yeah. Well, we don't control Amazon, so we're trying to influence them with advocacy. And I would just say that Target's already dealt with this with its stores that are in areas that already have bans, and so has Wawa. Everyone's already adapted to it. But I don't know what to say about Amazon other than we're trying to influence change there as well. And the more people that participate in that and the louder the voices, the faster it'll happen.
Do me a favor,
Yeah.
find out what Giant does with those bags that they say they recycle.
Yeah, I can send you documentaries that show tracking of it.
I've
Actually,
seen those
ABC
already.
just, yeah. We breathe it in the air. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any reason to keep this from going to committee? Going to the board?
Did you want to incorporate the comments that Wawa made? Most of them were kind of housekeeping items about how the labeling, like I think one of them was in our ordinance says carry out bag charge. They were asking if it just could be bag fee, just because all of there's some internal workings on some of these organizations with bags. And in that email that Wawa sent you, there were a number of those kinds of things. They asked if there was an exception for the hot, I think they call it a soup bag or hot products. In case they spill, plastic would hold it in, doesn't spill on other people. Did you want those incorporated or not? I think there's also, one of the other comments that a lot of businesses made was the grace period to get them through the Christmas season, because I think a lot of them have already ordered and bought stock for, I think this gives a 90-day, but would you want to tweak that to allow them to get through the Christmas season?
I'm fine with that.
And there were a few other minor ones in the,
No, I'm fine with like an implementation of January 1st, 2024.
Oh, what we didn't talk about was the enforcement of this. And
Well, I think we talked about the enforcement a lot. I think we're just not all on the same page with the enforcement. So anyway, hold on, because you're right, we should potentially talk about that. But Matt, to your point, Wawa's questions to me became semantics of their organization and had coverage in our ordinance for what they were proposing. So for instance, right, they're talking about specific bags for liquid items or whatnot. You know, we have in here, exempted bags include to contain unwrapped prepared foods or bakery goods. And in my opinion, that sort of could be interpreted to cover soups or other things like that. So I don't know, I am not in favor of rewriting our language for a specific institution's internal language processes, because, you know, we can work with them in the realm of the interpretation of what we wrote.
Could the language on the, because it says shall be identified as carry-out bag charge, is there language we could put in, or something similar to that, or something acceptable to the township?
Maybe we'll just put the phrase or an equivalent phrase.
Yeah.
Satisfaction, that's fine.
That would address that issue.
Yeah.
I think there was the soup bag, there was the bag charge, there was the recycling label, like on the recyclable bag, there's specific language that needs to be, like it was the source of the manufacturer. I forget exactly what they said about that.
Well, my understanding of that matter, or at least reading the comment, was that they were just concerned that the current stock that they had didn't contain all of the language that we're requesting in the ordinance.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
I think the cleaner way would just be let that source run out and then they comply with the ordinance when they can. Rather than change the actual language of our ordinance on that.
Yeah.
And if we are talking about enforcement, I think.
We have to.
Yeah, so
Before we vote.
18010A says the township manager or his or her designee shall have the primary responsibility for enforcement of this ordinance. And I think that allows Matt and code enforcement to talk through how they feel is the best way to serve this. We wrote out the violation structure and what it means to be in violation of this. I think we had discussed at a previous meeting that the intention of this is not to have Rob or Paul out in a car every day, driving around in circles looking for what businesses are using plastic bags. The intention is for the general population, if they see something that's out of alignment, to call the township, and then we would assess it at that point. But the largest amount of folks who would be utilizing plastic bags are already making these transitions, and I think I think it's going to be less of an issue of enforcement than we actually. But the structure is in place for Matt and codes to work out.
So here's where I am with the enforcement part of it. We talk about this, and Ms. Rothermel identified that there's a big deal with litter. So when was the last time we wrote a citation for littering?
You can't catch somebody, I mean, if you catch somebody littering, you write a citation. You
Okay.
can't identify a piece of litter on the ground and track it back to where it came from.
Every dumpster, you could write, they leave their dumpsters open.
In my opinion, they should be fined for it.
Right. But what have we done for enforcement as far as writing a ticket, a citation for littering?
I don't know those statistics.
I think it's pretty much zero, but I don't know for sure either. So,
Doesn't make it right, though.
does it?
So, I mean, this is a good time then to talk about that as a holistic issue within the township and have the ordinances that are in violation be addressed more regularly. Like if we drive by, if somebody drives by a dumpster that's overflowing with trash all over it, the dumpster's open and there's stuff blowing away, then either if somebody from code enforcement sees it, stop, write a violation, or if somebody within the community sees it, they should be able to call the township and have somebody go out there and fine them.
And the reason I bring that up is we've talked about education here and that we're trying to change society with plastic bags. Well, society has just decided instead of getting your butt out of the car and going to the trash can right in front of you, just open the car door and throw the stuff out. Happens everywhere.
You can't combat stupidity.
But it's got accepted.
No, I don't accept it at all. Unfortunately, you can't, I can't write an ordinance for laziness and stupidity. If I could, we would have a draft.
do you say? Can't fix stupid?
Can't fix stupid. We can try, we'll put it on the agenda for next month.
All right. Now that we brought enforcement to the table, we forgot to talk about that previously, is there any other public comment regarding enforcement? All right, and I'm with Anthony. I think the draft is fine the way it is, and there is enough stuff in there to provide suitable uses for changes for a hot beverage or like a thing of soup. I'm okay with the way it is.
I do agree with no exceptions that Anthony said.
And we're looking at January 1st, as far as, instead of 90 days.
Right. January 1st, 2024 will be the grace period, and then we'll alter 180-4 to add that additional phrase to the carry-out bag language that you have to have on your receipt.
I would say pass the ordinance with that it goes into effect now, but we won't, so people do know when they start, because it's fresh in their mind, we send out the letters. But we will not start enforcing January 1st.
Right, the ordinance already contemplates that the second you guys pass it, it's in force.
Okay. What's the date of the July meeting?
July 10th.
10th, okay. Okay,
Good conversation. I think this is a long time in deliberation, but I think we've really talked about it well and thoughtfully, and I appreciate that, so thank you.
okay, that being said, we can go back to our introductory, the car wash. You guys ready?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Finton McHugh here for Cloud 10 Car Wash. Also with me tonight is Jeff Agosta. He's the CFO. Brendan Johnson, the CEO. Steve Sauce, he is the Operations and Development Director. We also have Adam Davis and Connor Surgener. There are project engineers. And in case there are any traffic questions, we have Ian Preston, our traffic engineer here. You will recall that we were before the CDC back in 2022, before we obtained zoning relief. We did obtain that zoning relief. We're back now for a preliminary/final land development approval. I think you're all familiar with the sites. And we did recently receive a June 7th review letter from Jim Hirsch and Emily Paskowitz, and Adam is here to, if it pleases the board, to walk through the letter and address point by point the comments that are in there, but they're all will comply issues. It's a relatively clean letter, and we will comply with all those requirements. So unless you have any other additional questions up front, I'd ask Adam to come up.
I think we'll let you guys go through your letter, and then I have some questions about PennDOT, so we'll go through the letter first.
All right, thank you. So Adam, do you just want to go by one, different review comments?
Yeah, I actually think he should just go through the waivers, discuss the waivers, if that's okay with the board. All right, we'll start with the waivers, and then if there's any questions past that, we can go through the rest.
Sounds good. So we are requesting 9 waivers as part of the land development plan. The first one we are requesting is regarding the encroachment within the wetland buffer. Currently, with the existing site conditions, there are existing encroachments within the wetland buffer. However, there's a location where we're proposing an encroachment that isn't an encroachment now, but our encroachment is only 5 feet, whereas the existing encroachment on the current site is 11 feet. So what we're asking for is less than what currently exists on the site today.
So you don't want the 5 and the 11, you're gonna improve it.
Going to improve it, correct? And we are not impacting the wetland in any way.
And why is that such a great need?
That's for the employee parking.
I was trying to identify where the actual encroachment was. This employee parking. Yeah. Didn't see. It looked like that, the drive aisle was the. Somewhere in here.
Yeah, it's literally like this corner. Okay, right there.
Good.
So my only pushback on that is that some of your future waivers that are going to come up deal with reduction in vegetation or changes to the vegetation that's requested for the property. And I feel that the combination of coverage within the wetland area and reduction in plantings will make this already very wet area function worse than it does now. And so I'm putting that out there now, so when we get to some of the other things, we can talk about it holistically, because I want to look at it as a complete site rather than one specific waiver topic.
Okay. I will add to that real quick. So with the proposed improvements, we will be improving stormwater runoff from the site as it currently exists today.
Correct.
So we are proposing subsurface stormwater BMP, which will improve water quality that ultimately does discharge to that wetland.
Yeah, sure.
Where it currently does before.
I don't know if you've been here before. Everybody does that, right? It's part of our land development process. You've got to do it. Many locations within the site, this one included, even if you do improve it, it's still not fantastic, because we do have stormwater management issues throughout this community. So again, let's table this and we'll identify it as we talk about some of these other areas, but I just want to make sure that we have a conversation about the best stormwater management practices for this site that could potentially be above and beyond what you're already planning, if a request for some of these other waivers were to go through.
Okay. Waiver number 2 is we're requesting a waiver for locating the 24-inch or greater caliber trees that are located within the wetland. Given we are not encroaching within the wetland, disturbing the wetland, it's not part of the development, we're requesting a waiver for that area. We have located all of the other on-site trees that are part of the developable area that we are.
Which section was that?
Section 342 point, or is that 42I?
Okay. All right.
I'm not inclined to agree with that one. The whole idea of identifying trees is, what if we go to great lengths to even get certain species of trees that should be removed, because they're trees from heaven. They just, you don't want to identify it. I think all trees should be out there. I don't understand why that's such a hardship.
I think our thought in that one is that they're not proposing any disturbance within that forested area.
Right.
So the identifying 24-inch and greater trees is, those are your heritage tree, which requires more replacement than a normal tree. But if they're not disturbing any of those trees, then the exercise of identifying them
So,
sort of,
so that means that, if they don't identify them, then there's no heritage trees on the property. That's why I'm saying,
yeah, well, they are not proposing to disturb any of those trees, so.
what if one of those trees, I don't know exactly what's there, so what if one of those trees is, an unwanted tree? A tree from heaven.
Tree of heaven. I mean, it's my understanding that that ordinance section is related to the heritage tree protection and the replacement thereof when you disturb it.
disturbing anything
I don't
there.
think that that section of the ordinance is to identify invasive species and then have them be removed. I've never seen that happen.
Right. So we're losing that opportunity to get an invasive species removed.
Well, I don't think that ordinance requires the removal of it.
Doesn't. We encourage it. There's a whole bunch of other trees you don't want to put in there too, you know?
All right, would we put a pin in this one too?
Just to clarify, your tree of heaven is a spotter and lanternfly.
Oh yeah, it does suck them up too. It's a
That's,
trophy tree for them.
yes. That's where they all go, is the tree of heaven.
Yeah, we like it for that, right? Oh, that's how I feel about it right now, but let's,
Okay.
it's just the, see no evil, you know, like that's, I don't live that way,
Understood.
but I'm only one vote here. Go ahead.
The next waiver is to permit the fee in lieu of replacing the 10 existing trees on site that are proposed for removal. The 10 trees that we are, that are going to be removed were part of the development of the bank itself. So while they are there, they weren't, you know, larger, older trees. And just to sort of why we're requesting the waiver, it's not that we do not want to plant the trees. It's just given the amount of trees that are required to be replaced and the developable area that we have to replace them is very small. There's a bunch of existing utilities and proposed utilities, and that sort of alludes to some of the comments that we got for the landscaping. And we're not asking for a waiver, again, to not plant them. We're just asking for the commission to allow the fee in lieu to where they could take the money that would be spent on this site and plant them that would probably be better suited elsewhere on the township, whether it be a park or some other areas that may need additional landscaping.
It's a reasonable waiver request.
There will be trees all the way around the perimeter on the street side of the building. Is that correct? Is that what I'm looking at, all the circles?
Yeah, so there are existing trees that are to be remain along county line, and we are placing what we can along Davisville. It's just a very narrow area between edge of pavement and PennDOT right-of-way. We can't place within PennDOT right-of-way. Not to mention, again, the existing utilities that do remain on site.
Okay.
All right, we got, any other questions on that one?
That's just my point, right? So we're talking about a reduction in plantings because of lack of space on the property, but then we're also requesting wetland encroachment. So those two things conflict in my mind.
Well, wetland buffer encroachment, not actually encroaching within the wetland.
Okay.
And that 5 foot that we're requesting is less than what currently exists there now. Additionally, we are proposing less impervious pavement. Again, that is currently on the site as well.
Number 4.
We're requesting a waiver of the preliminary plan to go straight to final. No questions on that?
This is a demo of a building and a reconstruction. What's the
Yeah.
hardship with that?
Well, everything would be constructed in one phase. So nothing will change from preliminary to final. So it's not a larger development to where we'd be doing, preliminary plan for the entire one and constructing a phase 1, phase 2. This would be one phase, demo, build. Preliminary, the final plan would be exactly the same as preliminary plan. We submitted everything in accordance with the final.
So Alex, explain to us exactly the missed opportunity for the township if we, waive land development.
You're not waiving land development, you would just have to do 2 separate approvals. You can condition final land development upon things that you see that weren't completely thought out or finished in preliminary, but that's really the only downside here is that, well, that's the only downside in theory if you would waive it, but what they're presenting is that they have a fully finished land development plan in front of you, so I don't think those issues would pop up.
Okay. Any objection to that one?
No.
Anthony?
No.
All right.
Number 5 is to permit a curb radius of less than 5 feet. Just given the tight maneuverability with the car wash in the site, we are proposing a few areas with less than 5 foot.
Places where you're going less than 5 foot, what are the radiuses?
I would say anywhere from 4 to 3.
Where are they on the plan?
Parking peninsula, right?
Yeah, there's one, if you're going south of the car wash, if you're gonna turn down for the vac stalls that are planned north-south, there's a 3-foot radius there.
So a lot of times when waivers for those radiuses are requested, irrigation's required. Are you planning on irrigating any plantings on those islands?
Irrigation's required for the curb radius?
Generally, Kevin, when the waiver is for a reduced area of a parking island is when the irrigation comes into play. This is more of a circulation issue and maneuverability. And they've provided a turning template to show that the emergency vehicles and the refuse trucks can access the site. This would be like if someone was pulling out of the vacuum area, like can they safely get back and make that turn? And I think that passenger vehicles should have no issue there.
Okay, so is there no trees planted on those 2 peninsulas in the parking lot that are used?
We do comply with your interior landscaping for your parking lot.
Okay.
Looks like there's some smaller shrubs and potentially trees on all those islands.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the nature of the one-way circulation on the site, it didn't concern me.
Right. It's actually a legitimate hardship.
Yeah, like angled parking and one-way traffic, I feel like those radii don't impede on anything.
If you make it 5 feet, it eats up the entire island itself.
Okay, that takes us to sidewalk width.
Yeah, this is to allow a 4-foot width to connect into the existing sidewalk that currently exists on site along Davisville and County Line Road.
As opposed to like a transition, you want it 4 foot all the way?
Yeah, there wouldn't really be much of a transition, quite honestly, just given the tie-in of where the proposed, so if you look on the plan, I don't even think there would be a transition.
Is the majority of your sidewalk you're proposing 5 feet though? I think that's Kevin's question.
That is my question.
You're tying into sidewalk that's 4 feet.
Right.
But are you trying to continue that 4 feet along the entire frontage? Or are you just trying to have a piece that's 4 feet
Yeah,
that ties in?
it's really, the sidewalk that we're tying in is just at the are
Okay.
called proposed
I get it.
entrances, but the existing, so it's probably a section of 5 foot, you know,
Jim just asked if the majority of it's gonna be 5 foot of the other side, of all the sidewalk combined.
yeah, I mean, we could have a transition shown, but the length of sidewalk that we're proposing, it's not like it's gonna be a 50 foot to where we do 5 foot and then a transition. It's such a small transition, so
Again, I think it's a reasonable request. I'm okay with that. Any problem?
Nope.
No.
7.
7 is to permit a fee in lieu of the 18 of 23 trees installed along the right-of-way. Again, that goes back to our request for number 2, just given the amount of landscaping that's required and really area that landscaping can adequately be installed without overcrowding and overplanting and ultimately having the trees die. Again, asking for the commission to allow a fee in lieu and not a complete waiver.
Okay. 8.
8 is to not require a waiver for the requirement of showing utilities within 400 feet of the boundary. We provided sort of an extent, I believe a separate plan to the township engineer showing that boundary. We did locate all of the existing utilities with on-site and, within the road frontage. So anything really outside of that area would be,
That's one of my questions for PennDOT. Are they willing to waive all that?
I don't know if that 400-foot requirement is specifically a PennDOT requirement. That would go outside of our survey area, Ian. Would that be an accurate statement?
The 400 feet.
So if the township requires a 400-foot outside of the property limits to locate all existing utilities. That 400-foot limit would be outside of what PennDOT would require for the survey related to our HOP.
Yes.
So we would need to provide a survey to PennDOT within the, I'll call it HOP limits. And that 400-foot boundary would exceed that HOP limit as well.
Did you apply for your HOP yet?
There's an application with PennDOT.
You have to use a microphone. You can hold the microphone if you like, but you do have to use a microphone. There's
So
a-
the current PennDOT application is for the traffic study that's under review by the township as well. That same application will become the highway occupancy permit
Your
application.
name is?
Name is Ian Preston with KCI Technologies.
Okay.
Any questions on 8?
I'm good. You see it all the time.
9 is to permit pipe size of 15 inches due to just the existing site conditions. That's relative to the trench drain that we're proposing. We did demonstrate in our calculations that the 15-inch can convey the 100-year storm, which I think the requirement typically is it 10 for on-site? 10 or 25. But due to the reduced size, we showed that it can still convey up to the 100-year, which would exceed.
Do you agree with that, Jim?
Yeah, I have no objection to that waiver.
That's just for the trench drain anyway, right? It's 1 point.
That's correct, it is one pipe.
So going through your list of waivers, the only problem I have is with identifying heritage trees. And I don't understand why that's such a hardship.
I think we requested the waiver on the intent of the ordinance, which was to identify the trees which are to be removed. So you knew what the replacement was, since we're not proposing any removal in that area. That's why we were asking for the waiver.
Right. And we have a huge wetland there. I don't know if it's 100 feet. 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 100 and we're always trying to make improvements on our wetlands. Stream bank stabilization is something that could be used over at that site. It hasn't been done yet. So I personally am not in favor of that waiver. The rest of the stuff seems very reasonable. And I don't think it's like an impossible task.
I mean, we could certainly go and do it. It was just,
I get it.
Are you saying for only heritage trees?
Yeah.
Inside there?
but the 24 inches are, I mean, there may be 0 out there. We don't know.
Might be.
So we can, I mean, if that's something that you guys want to have us do, I mean, we can certainly.
Is there any opportunity to make an improvement in the existing wetland buffer on that site? Like, I know you don't want to touch it because it would be a waiver, but what is the condition of the existing 25-foot wetland buffer? Do you know that?
What's the condition of I mean, there's a bunch of parking within that buffer now.
Yeah, so when you're going to remove that parking as part of your project?
Yeah, yep, I mean, all the parking and existing improvements are going to be removed, so it would be.
So you're essentially establishing a portion of this 25-foot buffer?
Yes, yeah.
So you're asking to encroach in it by 5 feet, but you're improving it in other parts of the site?
Overall impacts within that wetland buffer are significantly less than what currently exists today.
Yeah, sorry, I was paying attention. I was also looking at your ordinance calculation tables, your zoning information tables. So I could refresh my memory as to what the requirements are for impervious, what the existing condition ones, and what the proposed is. So the requirement's 70%. You're working with an existing condition of 43.6, and you're improving the site to 42.6. Without moving at all into the wetland area and encroaching ever so slightly into the buffer area while cleaning up a good length of the buffer. In the
Correct.
process. Okay. Okay, and then maybe this is not a question for you, but what is the estimated number of employees to be functioning at this facility at any given time?
Someone from Cloud can certainly answer that.
We did talk about that when we were in before.
Good evening, Steve Sauce, Cloudtown Car Wash. Employee total enrollment would be 10 to 12 people. Maximum will be 4 to 5, depending on seasonality.
Okay, clarify, that's on the payroll, that's not at one time.
Per shift.
On payroll. 2 to 3 per shift, 4 or 5 a day. So these are ultra efficient facilities.
Okay, all right. I asked that question because I'm looking at your proposed number of parking, and you have 19 vacuum stalls, 17 spaces for waiting area, which is great because it's 2 more than the queue that's required. But then you have 5 employee spaces. And one of those employee spaces is the one that's encroaching the buffer. So is it actually necessary? Can we reduce that down to 4 parking spaces and get that space back?
It would be just because of, based on how we do our shifts. We allow for an opening shift, an evening shift for the closing, and then middle of the day, that's when we have our overlap for meals and things like that as required by break laws and stuff like that. So they have to be able to eat their lunch. We will not operate a property unsafely. So we have to make sure the coverage is there.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Last question I have for anybody. The vacuum units, you back up to a residential and they have fought a lot of different things. These vacuuming units are essentially enclosed in a, not over top, but surrounded to force noise to go upward instead of outward.
So the vacuum units are, for lack of a better term, and I don't have any like brand names, but they're the Dyson of vacuum systems for car washes. They're ultra quiet. They do have a noise. Everything emits some level of noise. We prefer, when allowed, to have an 8-foot high enclosure. In some municipalities, we go as high as 14. It's a little bit overkill, but 8 feet will hide the majority of the equipment. It holds the sound. These don't emit a lot of noise. They're super balanced producers and things like that. We're using nozzles that suck onto a holder and not into, so there's no air leakage. So the noise is minimal. And the motors are run by transducer control, which is like having automatic cruise control. So most operators are using standard, I'm going into a little bit technical stuff, but to give you an idea of noise. Most operators turn the motors on, they're running all day at full power. Ours are running as needed. If there's more people using it, they start to ramp up. It doesn't make any more noise, but the power will increase. What that does is prevent premature wear of the motors and stuff like that. We just opened a site 2 weeks ago, up in Wyoming, Pennsylvania, and I can't even believe how quiet the things are, to be honest with you. They're fantastic.
Okay, that's one of my bothersome when I go to car wash 3 days a week. So, believe me, I do. Well, I shouldn't say me, my wife does.
This car is filthy.
And that is
Mine's worse.
pretty much the only noise you hear at a car wash is the vacuums.
Correct, and that's why we try to go with a taller than 6 foot. We don't prefer a 6 foot enclosure, we prefer an 8 foot enclosure. We're doing that at all of our current sites, if not higher. And part of it is to hide the equipment, so there's an aesthetic value to it, as well as just burying any noise that could be emitting from it. But the new systems, again, it's a different thing that we're doing. I think one of the members or two of the members in a different committee had gone up and looked at what we do, to have an understanding of what we do, and thought that it was better than what is normally done.
Do you have what is the closest one you have?
Currently, nothing is more than or less than 2 hours away. So we're in Wyoming, Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Sewell, New Jersey, which might take a day and a half now based on what happened on the highway. But,
okay.
And we're down in Wormleysburg. So.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
Hours of operation.
As early as 7 and as late as 8 p.m. Most of the operations are somewhere in that. We don't really go to 9 p.m. except in some of the city markets where there's a desire for people to work or come in late at night. But we don't open before 7. We're not a 24-hour operation. We have what we consider normal business hours.
And how much of your wash water is recycled?
A lot. I think we got into this last time, and we're in the 80 to 90% range right now, and we're working towards greater efficiencies. So it's not something that we skimp on. We take water reuse very seriously. If you get a water bill as a commercial user, you'll understand why. But our water systems are many components. So we don't get rid of water just to get rid of it. We use everything that comes out of our RO systems, our reclaim systems, all of that. It is caught inside the building and reused as much as possible.
And I think it's worth saying, Steve, that's not typical.
Not typical. So we have to create certain types of water, and there's wastewater that comes from that. The wastewater that's used in our RO or spot-free system, most operators in the past just dump that down the drain. Is about as foolish as you could be. We put that into holding tanks and mix it with reclaimed water, polished water, fresh water, whatever needs to be to reuse it in the process itself. So our reduction is massive. So one of our biggest facilities is using less than gallons than it takes for anybody to take a shower. So I can't give you exact numbers because in our quest, they just keep getting lower and lower.
We did talk extensively about this when you were in here before. Okay, who wants to talk about traffic?
You're up. Thank you.
Thanks.
You
Ian Preston with KCI Technologies again.
Welcome.
Thanks.
You have any comments on McMahon's review letter?
No, the current traffic study is under review by both McMahon and PennDOT. I spoke to Chad on Friday about the traffic study review. I could summarize the findings of the traffic study if you're interested.
Yeah.
So, 2 access points, both existing. County Line Road is the right in, right out. Today, that's via signing only. We will be improving that condition and using a pork chop island to turn that into a physically restricted right in, right out driveway. PennDOT's design standards will, along with the townships, will control the design of that median island. Then at the main full movement access on Davisville Road, that's the one opposite the main shopping center. We have left turn lanes today there existing. That is an existing full movement driveway for the bank today. That driveway will function no worse than it does today. McMahon had some concerns with the availability of gaps for drivers, in particular, leaving the driveway to Davisville Road. We did conduct a gap study as part of the traffic study. That's where we go out and we actually measure during the peak hours the availability of gaps in either direction. And what we did confirm is that there are adequate gaps for both shopping center traffic and the proposed Cloud 10 car wash traffic. There is going to be some delay during those peak hours as you'd expect. Drivers are going to have to wait for an adequate gap. They're aided by the traffic signal nearby that kind of helps provide gaps in at least the one direction. I guess the traffic signals that we looked at, which were County Line and Davisville Road, and then the other County Line and Davisville Road intersection to the east, they both function no worse than existing conditions with the addition of the new car wash traffic that we're anticipating, which is a fairly modest increase in traffic at both intersections. The only other proposed improvement in the traffic study that I'd like to mention, and this is just purely a safety improvement proposed by Cloud 10, but when we looked at the crash and safety at the intersections, just trying to see if there was any kind of low-hanging fruit, anything that we could implement to improve safety. And Cloud 10 has proposed to, at the main signal adjacent to the site, swap the existing left turn signal heads for the new standard, which are those 4-section flashing yellow arrows. And those are just the new standard. Data shows that they provide up to a 25% decrease in fatal and injury left turn related crashes. So that is something that Cloud 10 is proposing to do as part of the project.
Yeah, when did that become ordained in Pennsylvania? Because I never saw that become part of the driving code.
That was approximately 6 years ago. I think the first pilot installation went in. Just like most things, Pennsylvania lagged behind some other states that had made that their standard for.
Whoa, where is KCI operating out of? Hold on a second.
Obviously.
Traffic guy.
So wait, people might have their own thoughts on them. The data is very convincing that where they're installed, they do lead to, it's the new standard, so it makes sense to get them upgraded for consistency. Just swapping them in effect too will force drivers to kind of consider the actual left turn phasing and make sure that they have the protected arrow.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of that. Thank you for offering it up. There's a left turn arrow there now. When it turns red, you're queuing for no reason whatsoever, and sometimes in the opposite direction because you're coming out of a shopping center. You're just sitting there waiting. So anything we do to improve that, I think that's great. So thank you for that.
Yeah, without getting too technical, they cut down on that trap kind of time between with the changeover in phase. So
Look, every opportunity I get, when I saw blinking yellow, when I first saw these lights, it meant go. I mean, yellow
Wonder
light-
why we have accidents.
Right, so. Absolutely.
And broadcast.
No, it was never identified in driving manuals or, at the state level. So I was very curious about it, and my own traffic engineer doesn't give me a straight answer either.
I guess there were two other kind of unique elements to the traffic study that they wanted us to look at. One was the back of queuing on Davisville Road at the County Line Road intersection today.
Right.
So we did document in the traffic study just how often those queues back up towards the shopping center access and the main access. It does happen intermittently, well under half of the cycles of the traffic signal in the peak hours. It's most pronounced in the weekday afternoon peak hour, so your 4 to 5 o'clock. That traffic signal is running on a very long cycle today. There is a PennDOT traffic signal retiming project coming through that corridor. It's possible they'd look at shortening it if possible, but I have a feeling it's going to stay long like it is. That was the reason that we looked at the gap study to make sure that truly there are enough gaps out there today for both shopping centers.
What time did you do your gap study? What days of the week, what time?
During the peak hour. I can find the actual date.
Afternoon, peak hour?
Afternoon and Saturday, yes.
Okay.
Saturday from whatever it was in the counts, but 11:30 to 12:30, something like that. And then the PM was 4:30 to 5:30.
Did we review any crash data for that intersection?
We did review crash data for the intersection, yes.
What did we find?
We found that, so the first thing we do is present the crash data. Then we use PennDOT's highway safety manual analysis methods. That kind of compares the intersection configuration to other intersections in the county. The crash rate for the intersection, at least at the one on the corner of the site, is higher than the model predicts for a signalized intersection with those traffic volumes. That could be for a variety of reasons. The next step is we prepare a crash diagram that kind of breaks that down further. Every possible group of crashes, here's the driver behavior, here's the left turns. So there's two main takeaways from the crash study. There were a significant number of crashes over the past 5 years that we reviewed. There were almost no fatal or serious injury crashes. There was a single possible serious injury crash. So that was the good news from the crash safety study. When we further reviewed the data, it looks like most of the crashes many of them are property damage only, rear end crashes, just basically what you typically expect for a congested kind of corridor. Out of the crash safety study then, what we did was try to find any possible improvements that are feasible within the realm of a project like this, and that was where the flashing yellow arrow recommendation came out of.
And this is just, I live within, well, I don't consider it walking distance, but my wife and everybody else probably says it's walking distance. I live right up the street. That we have had severe accidents there. I can tell you now, one's still in the recovering from 2 or 3 months now at this intersection. It's a local person that lives here. But as Anthony stated before, you can't engineer stupidity. It's people running red lights there. And like I said, I live less than a quarter mile away.
Also high speed on County Line Road going east.
And people trying to beat the yellow lights when they're flashing or something.
I guess what I would mention is...
I worry more about getting out on Davisville Road.
Yeah.
They're not large accidents because they're slower. They do happen there, and just for your own knowledge, like I said, I don't know how you can design away from it. You have to have a driveway.
Yep.
But that is a bad scenario because coming out of the shopping center across the street, you can't see once they start stacking. That's your gap. And you can't see to the right towards County Line Road to get out to go left. So it is a troublesome area. I travel through it every day, and there's not much we can do about it. It is one of the shame of it is.
I will say, I mean, if you kind of follow any access management manual, the idea is that you restrict access on one of the major arterials to the extent possible. That's County Line Road, the right in, right out. And then any kind of access management manual would say, locate the full movement access as far from the signal as possible. That's where it is. Yeah. Provide left turn lanes. They're there. Locate it opposite any other existing driveways. that's where it is today. We're open to additional signing for don't block the intersection or something like that. I think from my observations, what we're seeing out there is low speed. Drivers are familiar with it. You often have to be patient and wait for the cycle at the traffic signal to clear out the queue before you proceed. I think the study confirms that we don't anticipate conditions to be any worse with the addition of the Cloud 10 traffic. We just remind everyone that it's a functioning bank today.
So I heard what you say about your gap study, but I don't think I've experienced any staged vehicles actually blocking the driveways.
Could you clarify that?
Like Davis Road doesn't back up at the County Line Road light past the driveway to the shopping center.
When Davis Road, sure it does. Absolutely.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you don't live there.
I don't go there at 5 o'clock.
We were asked by
the problem.
We were asked by the township engineer to quantify how often it is happening in the traffic study. And again, from our, we were out there. It does happen. It's quantified in the study. It's not most cycles at the traffic signal. Again, it's really a function of the long cycle length at the signal. Any kind of shortening of that cycle, and you'd look at a degradation in level of service, you'd be basically moving the queuing elsewhere at that point.
And it will get better as soon as they open Warminster Road. I'll tell you that one.
Okay.
Warminster Road's closed, all the traffic's going.
That'll probably help considerably.
Do we want to entertain that request about don't block the box?
It's more sign pollution.
Yeah, I don't think we need it.
I don't think it's necessary.
I'm against additional signing in general. PennDOT generally frowns on that one these days. They'll make their decision about access, but like I said, we're open to it on the site portion, at least if it was.
How many cars will go through here at a peak time?
So the peak time.
4 to 6 on a normal day.
The weekday afternoon, we have 41 anticipated vehicles entering throughout that peak hour. Saturday, about 58. And the Saturday conditions are generally not quite as bad. The traffic signal runs a shorter cycle.
In 1 hour?
In a single hour entering the car wash facility. It's based on the highest observed from our site data over a couple of weeks. So it's probably on average going to be a little bit lower. It's probably a conservative number, but it could be higher based on weather and.
Okay.
We did look at on-site queuing as well with those 3 kiosk lanes, how many cars can be in the car wash tunnel at a given time. That was another request of the township engineer. The finding in the traffic study is essentially, even if half of the peak hour traffic arrived in a 10 or 15 minute period, you wouldn't have any queuing back to the first internal kind of intersection in the site. It would require the entire peak hour traffic to arrive in a 5-minute interval or something absurd. It has never happened at any existing Cloud 10 site that's under operation. And it probably would be impossible to happen here just based on the traffic and the way that the signal operates.
You mentioned other sites. Do you have other sites that have this kind of, thousands of vehicles per day that you're comparing it to?
The traffic, the trip generation that we use for Cloud 10, which I would point out is more conservative than what the typical traffic engineer manual would require for a car wash. That's based on existing Cloud 10 Pennsylvania sites. I know we did compare to some other Cloud 10 sites that were previously in operation in other states, and I can safely say some of the arterials that they're on have similar traffic volumes to County Line or Davisville Road. Is there one at an existing intersection of 2? I can't necessarily speak to that.
We get concerned about queued vehicles being out on the roadway. Come on up. That other microphone comes off. You can hold that in your hand and sit down if you'd like.
What you're describing is our enemy. Sorry, Brendan Johnson, I'm the head of the company. We have yet to, we've had, I think 12 or 13 locations, and some of them had significantly higher traffic counts than what we're looking at here. Significantly, like 10 to 15,000 cars per day, significantly higher. Same size facility, in some cases smaller. Steve, I don't think we've ever had a complaint about traffic backing up, ever.
We have a site that's less than a mile from a major highway in New Jersey, and we don't have the issue, and it's a feeder route. So
It's basically like, imagine putting a car wash at the end of the exit to the PA Turnpike. It's a natural, those are very busy car washes.
So
We have that, nothing.
answer the concern about stacking and queuing. There's two items. Stacking are the cars that are getting ready to purchase a wash. Queuing is what's purchased and waiting to wash. So we've got 3 lanes going in. These are high-speed terminals. The car wash facility itself is overbuilt. So if, and from your mouth to God's ears in our bank account, the peak hour traffic all shows up in a 5-minute window, and it's 55 cars, right? We've started processing those cars. We've got 19 stacked up. We've already got a third of the cars on the property. They'll start processing so fast that, and it's never gonna happen, but the facility itself can handle 5 cars on the conveyor minimum, running bumper to bumper with all the safety enhancements inside the building. The cars in queue, the cars in stack. So we've got more than 25 cars, 30 cars in process within minutes. So it's overbuilt to handle capacity way beyond what's going to show up. And the reason for that is, if you've ever gone to a Dunkin' Donuts and waited in line for your coffee, and you just get frustrated because they can't make things fast enough, and that's something they work on, we baked that into the cake from day one. So the conveyor length is designed to handle the volume anticipated at the site plus 100%. And that goes with everything else in the facility. All the equipment, the water production, and everything is all designed to go way beyond maximum capacity.
So if you think about other retail outlets and what you're concerned about, and think about what causes the bottleneck that causes the lines and those things, inevitably it's people involved in the process. We've got computers that are running the show here, basically. They're running the kiosks, they're reading your it's the same Easy Pass camera, or same camera that you use for Easy Pass is reading your license plate. It's sequencing all of you into the gates, depending on which wash you had. It's all monitoring that. It's going through the tunnel. You're in an infrared box. Each one of your cars is in a box. It's making sure you don't jump out of it. So there's no humans in the process that are slow, that are becoming the bottleneck, other than the person who's there for insurance purposes to wave you in and make sure you're on the track. So there's that one major difference. And to Steve's point, the analogy I like to use is, I'm flying you and 6 buddies down in Lake City, and I'm doing it with a 747 jumbo jet. Clearly overkill. That tunnel is engineered to be complete overkill so that we never have lines. And there, where we don't have lines, you don't back up into the street.
While you're here, no objection to the trip generation fee?
The trip generation, refresh my memory, but
That is,
that's the 60,000.
that's the 60,000 or so dollars based on the weekday afternoon. Yeah.
Yes, that's not a problem.
Okay.
That was easy. What about $80,000?
Do I have to find the, do I have to find the tree that no one wants?
Commissioner Lockhart.
Thank you. I have a comment on one of the waivers, go back to that. Number 7, to permit a fee of no 18 out of 23 trees being installed along the right-of-way.
Right.
So I think it's really important as you drive down the road to not have it open and not have, the view of the building broken up by more trees. 18 out of 25 is a lot to waive. And I just think it makes a really big difference driving down our roads to not see the building and to see some more trees.
So there was the definition about why it was such a hardship.
Yeah, I know they talked about the utilities there, but I'm not sure why this location is so different from requiring it at other locations. Maybe there is.
So while we are requesting 18, we are still proposing one, maintaining the existing ones along County Line Road, and still proposing 1, 2, 3, 4, I would say 7 to 10 trees along Davisville. And what we don't want to do also is potentially cram more trees in and block the line of sight for cars exiting onto Davisville. And then again, it goes back to planting more trees, and, you know, you got to plan for the full growth. So we don't want to plant them close together and then ultimately have them die out. So we're just trying to be.
So how many trees are along Davisville? Existing and the new ones?
Well, existing, we are replacing the existing ones just because of where the proposed improvements will be. So we're proposing all new trees along Davisville. We're keeping the existing ones along County Line.
Yeah, how many trees will there be along each of these roads?
So the 4 along County Line will remain. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. I should have brought my glasses that I don't have. I literally don't wear glasses. So I'm getting old, I guess. I don't know.
I had trouble seeing you too.
Oh my gosh. I'm going cross-eyed here.
It looks like, to help you out and to speed things along, it looks like there's 2 along Davisville, and there's 4 along County Line.
That's not nearly enough for me.
Yeah.
I would not support that.
So what's actually missing is the actual corner. There's no trees proposed for the corner.
You gotta look for line sight there.
Yeah, we do have trees along the corner there. You know, not right up against the corner, which I don't think we want. I mean, we still.
No, I'm not, I'm talking about the big void between the last tree on County Line and the first tree on Davisville. Now, I see the sanitary manhole down below that, but between that and the last tree on County Line, there's to be a void where a couple trees could go in there.
I think we're trying to, again, plan for the growth of these trees as well.
You have a sign package that's going up on that corner?
We haven't done the sign package.
Yeah, I don't think we've submitted anything as regarding signage to the township just yet.
Are we going to vote on a waiver without a sign package? Or is it a will comply?
It's usually a will comply, but I don't know if we don't, I'm assuming they don't need zoning relief for it, but we don't have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming we're going to submit a sign package that's compliant with the current ordinance.
Yeah.
I mean, and just along Davisville Road, there's that existing sewer main, proposed sewer lateral. It's just, it's a very, very tight site.
And one of the concerns for the trees is the PennDOT line of sight.
Yeah, and I that's why I picked that area to identify that there's a big area there where a couple trees could go. As far as like those other numbers, I understand that, and I appreciate the fee in lieu of.
I do, but I agree with Cheryl. Along that street, across the street, looks like 7 trees. And that's what you are proposing, correct? On Davisville Road?
On Davisville Road, there is one existing that we're keeping. I would say around, I mean, if you're not including that corner, there's 6.
Okay.
You know? And then along County Line, there's the 4 existing that we're keeping in addition to 3. Or 2, I'm sorry.
I was just looking at the print, Cheryl, as far as the opposite side, it shows the trees. It looks like there's 7 on Davisville Road side of Marketplace. So if they're putting 6 in It's almost exact same both sides of the street, because I have the same concern as you. That, and they're not in the sight line there, because you can always elevate them. Then you're just measuring from your stop bar on the site, and I think you have enough. County Line Road, though, that I can't see what's there.
You saw the proposed though, right?
Yes.
Any other comments from the public? EAC, did you get a chance to take a look at this?
So would like to see as many trees as possible, of course, and not, obviously don't want the wetland to be impacted any more than it has to be, but it sounds like it already is, and they're actually going to help it out, so. And I assume they're going to control the stormwater,
They are controlling stormwater very well.
so.
Thank you, Lynette. Anybody else? Any reason to not move this out of committee?
No, but you have to specify, are they in agreement with going to the heritage trees that are not inside the building?
Yeah, they said yes.
Okay. And that's good.
And then as for the flashing yellow turn signal, is that a condition? How do we incorporate that into the?
I would just say PennDOT will have a say in that one as well. So we'd like to do it as part of the project. I doubt they would object to it anyway, but they'll have the final say over that.
Okay, appreciate that.
We could require it as a condition of approval of land development, subject to, of course, PennDOT's review and approval of the project, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's being offered, so you might as well just memorialize that.
Right.
No objections?
No, PennDOT lets us, we would advocate doing it, so.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to take these out of committee.
Yep.
To recommend everything we discussed, and including the waiver.
If you guys haven't already, can you provide our landscape architect with an estimate and a proposed fee in lieu for these tree deficiencies so that that can be incorporated in any kind of resolution?
Thanks, Jim.
Yep, no problem.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Let's.
Thank you very much.
There's so much more on the agenda. You're all leaving.
Okay, we're going to move.
Have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have some very patient people in the back here, sitting here waiting. We're going to move right into Parkside and Sycamore. What do you have, Jim, for this proposal? Dave Elshire couldn't join us today, and I met with him several times on the site, talked about the modified inlet.
Yeah, we talked about replacing at least one of the inlets in that intersection with an inlet with a sump at the bottom, meaning that like right now, the pipe come into the bottom of the inlet and they leave from that same elevation. And there's no room for debris to settle out in those inlets, so that debris just gets washed and carried with the water and onto the property that's right there at the intersection and takes a brunt of it. So I don't know that we have any kind of economical solution to not have the water go onto that property, but the thought with the sumped inlet was that the debris could get trapped in that inlet, and then Public Works could come and clean that out on a, pretty frequent basis, and it would, at least the water going onto the properties wouldn't contain the chunks of macadam, stone, other debris that's kind of picked up with runoff that it does today. But I know Kevin invited you guys, so I would like you to come up and tell us what's going on also. 'Cause you're here.
So good evening, and thank you for inviting us here. My name is Patricia Troilo, 2603 Parkside Avenue. I'll try to make this brief, but I have lived on that property for 58 years. And for 58 years, we have had stormwater runoff, not only on our property, but on the property that is next to us. We have had the stormwater runoff on the property behind us and on the properties that are in Happer Borough. There was a time when 611 was not quite as built up, and I understand that, progress is building and building and building, but no one seems to have taken into consideration all of that stormwater that is now running off of parking lots and widened 611 is going down into those storm drains and is coming out on our property. When I was growing up, there was at least a 6-foot trench that ran through there that would keep the water in the trench, and it would eventually start to drain out unless we had an incredibly heavy rain. Now, it is just completely flattened because of erosion. And
Wow.
so the water is not going anywhere.
Silt deposits came in there.
Okay, whatever that is. But I'm telling you, not a geologist, sorry, but I'm telling you that there is no place for that water. It comes out, it hits what is now an incredible hump, and just goes right over it and then spreads all across, not just on the side yard, but all the way into the backyard. So for 58 years, we have been fighting this with this township. My parents did it, my neighbors did it, and now the next generation is doing it. So there you have it, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
So they're 2603 Parkside, and the other neighbor here is 2605. They're the two neighbors that share.
Yeah, but if you're standing at the inlet, 2603 is the one that.
To the right.
To the right. You got somebody, Kevin?
Okay.
Yep, so I'm Jillian Schultz, I'm 2605, so I'm to the left of the inlet.
Got it.
We do not have nearly as much water and runoff as they do, but we do have all the litter you guys are concerned about. It's in our yard. We have glass fireball containers, not ours. We now have a son that we want to be able to run in our backyard. He can't because of the water, standing water. We left, what time did it start raining today? 3 o'clock? Later than that, 4 o'clock. I left for this meeting filled with water already. I have pictures if you'd like to see. I took it of the storm water. Someone came out, spray painted. You guys give us all the long song and dance. I've called the township, come out, pretend that they're gonna do something. It's too expensive. We pay tax dollars, use our tax dollars and fix it. This is ridiculous.
I put the spray paint there.
Okay, thank you,
And
Kevin.
So it's like, how far do we have to dig, and where's the transition to put the trench back in there?
So our vegetation is dying, our trees are dying, branches from our trees are falling onto Parkside. This is ridiculous.
So as far as Ms. Troilo said about the trench going all the way around, we walked that all the way out to Horsham Road, myself and our Director of Public Works, to follow everything that's transpired over the years with people putting fences along that line and sheds that are built there, just like she identified very well that, all this just disregard for the swell that was there and then the silt that's come in. So when we say too expensive, that is as far as putting a pipe from where that basin used to be, where that trench line used to be, through to Fair Oaks Road. and then it would go to, then we'd have to dig the road to go to another inlet. But we're about digging all that stuff out, putting the new inlets in, you know, and the sumps that can be vacuumed out when they build up. And then hopefully that will result in less silt and debris going into your property. And that would stay in the inlet where it can be vacuumed out.
And what about the water?
The water will go there, but it'll be excavated out, and then suitable soils will be in there that we can hopefully get some kind of percolation so that the water returns to the ground.
And how often will the sump be cleaned out by the Public Works Department?
That's on an as-needed basis. We'll analyze that and see. I mean, we own the vac truck. They run it regularly. It has a suction device on it.
The street sweeper is a vacuum truck also. That's what we use.
Yeah, it could be as regular as we need it. And this is, you know, a real problem everywhere, and people are starting to make these transitions, and we're seeing it. But yes, and if it doesn't work, we'll have to do something else.
Yeah, and I think you guys need to lead by example. You're sitting here telling this company they need a stormwater management program, and we don't even have one on our street.
Well, we do.
Well, it's failing.
Right. Well, historically, it's very old, so, you know, changes in the law so that you can't dump water on people's property. So.
You're dumping it on ours.
I understand that, but when it was built, that was the way things were done. So, you know, if this basin, if this area is dug out, it doesn't percolate in the proper amount of time, and the water doesn't return to the ground, we'll have to do something else.
Well, they waited 60 years, so we're gonna have to wait another 60 years for you to be willing to do something?
No. You had probably 45 of those years where it was a permitted practice.
Okay.
All right, and they let them build a house like that. There's lots of issues there, and it took a long time to get this far, but I understand you know, you're absolutely right. Everything you say is important to us, and we want to fix it. This could be, you know, the inlets are going to go in, that air is going to get dug out. And then we have.
Is water spread into your backyard, or is it
It
more your
does.
side yard?
No,
So-
completely into our side yard and backyard.
They have a big elevation change where their house is, so it's mostly their side yard. Trillo's house is much lower, and they have a lot more exposure.
Yeah, no, I remember it goes back and around the back of your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was brought up to me a year ago. I
Where
met
do
the
you want to
gentleman and
stop, where do you want to stop I understand the, removing the silt that's accumulated right at the pipe discharge.
Right.
And potentially, as much as you can, adjusting the elevation of the pipe to keep it as high as you can, right? So that it doesn't silt in as quickly again. But where do you want to stop the grading?
where's the low point?
Well,
No, I mean, like, on their property.
yeah, right, so we ought to cross over their property line from where it is now, but I mean, like, I put some paint out there to take a look at where I thought, like, okay, I matched the swale on the other side, you know? So I need you to go out there and, you know, did you take survey shots out there
We
already?
did, and there's not much fall at all between where that pipe discharges and the back right corner of the.
Right. So we know there's gonna be some water there that has to recharge. So we have to dig out at least to the bottom of that pipe, and then again some to put amended soils in there. Was that the plan, or no, you just think you dig it out and it'll percolate?
I don't know if it's gonna percolate without doing infiltration.
So we have to do a test, because if it doesn't, we have to do something else.
Okay.
All right, cool.
So I'm not as familiar with this problem as you two are. It seems like the natural course of this water, the termination point, where is the natural course of the termination point?
It's that property right there.
No, but I mean, it wasn't originally that property. What was the original?
The original line was, like she explained, it would go straight through, almost to the back of the property, and it would roll around to the right and go between the houses that are Hatboro and Upper Moreland, right between the property
So
line.
we go between Continental and Costello? Yeah. All the way down the
Exactly.
road?
Yeah. And there's places where it's piped, there's places where it's open, there's places where just,
The problem
Is
is,
there an easement back there?
I don't think so. The only easement that's there is for the sanitary sewer line.
isn't there, yeah.
And that does not follow the line of the drain water. It goes through there and then it makes its way over to Fair Oaks or Costello.
Okay, so what we really have to do is what we said, Kevin, I met the gentleman in the back, I guess, a year ago or so when I came over with Kevin, is figure out how far going back you can have some kind of a grade from the bottom of the pipe coming out from the road. You know, if we shoot that just to see, because it is obvious, silt's higher than pipe there. And once you put the, if you put a culvert, whatever, a spot where we can clean out. I mean, when the day I was there, he had chunks of blacktop that big, bags of it in the garage.
Single-use plastic bags that we have.
Microphone,
to
Trish.
through the yard.
So, and I told Kevin, I supported him from then. I did not, I said, go ahead and run with it because we're
So-
dumping everything from Nino's Pizza, that whole area and some of Portia.
No, that doesn't make it up there. That goes to
Into there.
another drain somewhere else.
That,
But it's,
come straight down.
from Linden, from the car wash.
Yes.
That's where it starts. And it goes across Easton Road. The proposed car wash over there.
Yes.
Now, Jim took a look at it and, it did sophisticated survey and said, hey, you know what? You start taking grade shots here, all these trees gotta come down, and they're mature trees. We don't, or if we had to pipe it through the other person's property, this is, $200,000. Now we're gonna cut a road, cut a pipe on, on Fair Oaks, I think it really is, going towards Costello to find the next drain. Or go the other way up to,
You talking about piping it the whole way, or are we talking about
an
cleaning what's there?
overflow, an overflow.
An overflow right now, which we would just need an agreement with them, construction easement and stuff for that. And then we need from Jim the actual site shots for the drop between the bottom of that pipe, the back of the yard, and go around to see how much we have to remove right now.
Right, so that's where we are. We're gonna put the inlet in.
Giving you a year, you don't want this done? Things don't move so quick here. Kevin, yeah. I've only been in a year, so.
We can certainly look at it again, but from what I remember, the swale from the pipe outlet to the back corner of their property would be so shallow, it was almost flat.
City water, right?
And I was worried at that point that what you would be doing is just retaining water between all this new graded area would just retain water and then it would be sitting there.
So we need solutions though, so if the ground perks, we might be able to do something. If not, we're gonna have to put a pipe in.
Okay. All right.
If there's enough fall, we gotta figure that out, exactly.
If you don't, generally speaking, if you don't have enough fall to run water over the ground, then you don't have enough fall to bury a pipe a foot below the ground and then run it somewhere. So, like, I understand what you're saying, and I think if you were going to somehow get a pipe to Fair Oaks,
I'd have to follow the easement that's already there for sanitary. That's the only way you can do that.
you would
And then you have
the authority to tell you it was okay to put a storm pipe in their sanitary easement, and the pipe would likely be directly above their sanitary line, so that's, but, okay, so if you got them to say that that was okay, then you get a pipe out to Fair Oaks Avenue.
Then you have to go another 400 or 500 feet to get to an inlet from there.
If you're gonna go to Carton, then you can go that way, but then you're adding all of this extra area that's gonna get to Fair Oaks Park, it's gonna go to the basin.
Right.
Or you, are installing storm sewer down Costello to try to get
That
to-
doesn't work, because that goes right back in the backyards again. See that? So if you go down,
I'm saying like the rear yards of Costello and the rear yards of Continental, that's a swale. At what point that has to go under Horsham Road and get to the creek, right? So
does it
what if
inlet?
this was in a pipe in Costello and nothing was in the rear, or still some things were in the rear, those rear yards, but just what drains to it? Everything else that's coming from this side is in a
In the
place.
same situation, there's two inlets along Costello that drain through to the backyards.
Okay, well, this new pipe that you put in on Costello would pick up those inlets. It's not cheap, but I'm saying it's what you're asking to do. I mean, the alternative is like, some kind of underground detention here that has a pump that pumps the water out. I mean, that's not conventional, but that's, if you're like, I need you to solve this problem and money's not an issue or whatever, but.
I want to return it to what it did before, where it actually drained around the property.
Okay.
And
Well, if that's the case, right, that's you trenching, that's you recreating a swale from Parkside to Horsham in the backyards of all the houses along Costello and Continental.
it's there already. There's existing,
Swale's there, the problem is there's trees.
there's
and
other things. that are
Everything's
involved.
grown and.
Yeah.
And like she said, 40 years ago, there was a deeper swale in your yard.
There was,
Yeah.
yes, but by no means was the water draining anywhere. It would just eventually soak into the ground.
So there was a deeper swale, but there was water constantly laying
Oh,
in that
absolutely. It
swale.
was
It
constantly
was the
water
same
laying.
scenario that you found was like, it's a low spot.
Yeah.
And that what actually drained around was still left a residual at that location.
And
Where the
obviously,
duck swam.
45 years ago, those trees weren't as big as they are now, so.
Or the fences or anything else.
I didn't want to propose something where we basically have the 45-year ago situation, which isn't optimal, and you don't have all those mature trees that you have now. Like, it didn't seem like a good solution to me.
But we have to do something.
I know it's unconventional, but, I mean, based off of how land trapped this all is, my brain went to the underground perk tank, which I know is crazy, but we gotta dig out all the debris there, get the fall below the existing pipe, and then if you can't push it anywhere, and our issue is percolating it back into the groundwater, then we need some kind of a storage tank there that would allow proper seepage. Yeah, I don't know what else to do.
I guess one of the questions, have we done percolation tests? I mean, do we? Because
Too much silt in the way to get there right now.
But if it doesn't perk, then none of that's gonna work anyway.
Well, holding tank would.
Well, but then how do you get it out of the holding tank?
So I need a better proposal to come back. Or like, if we're digging that out, what do we have left?
Why don't we do this? You want to dig it out, like, you gotta dig out
gotta get
the
dug out.
silt by the right of way regardless, right? So when he has the backhoe out to dig out the silt by the right of way, why don't we go in, if they're okay, go into the property a little bit where there are no trees or whatever, and we'll dig a hole and we'll do a perk test there. And then we'll know whether the ground perks. If the ground perks, then you're still, I mean, there's gonna be a lot a lot drains to that area, so like, any kind of design for an infiltration basin is likely gonna be overloaded from the start, just because you have so much drainage there, and you only have, 15 feet to play with, even if you straddled the property lines to put something in, so like, the available space in their yards is not big enough to put in a system to handle the amount of runoff that gets to it.
How long does it usually take the water to just dissipate, the standing water?
So I'm going to say after today's storm, it will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 4 or 5 days for it to go down. But then that whole area is not usable until probably a week, maybe a week and a half. You can't mow the lawn, you can't walk on it, it's all just mud.
Is that the way it's always been?
I would say,
Froze because it was Dan, Mike. Escape on the water back there.
Yeah.
and it's just, I mean, as I said, it has just gotten closer and closer and closer onto the properties as it has, flattened out.
Silted, yeah.
Silted. Thank you.
So we've been talking about this from the outlet at Parkside. What is happening at the higher end, like up Broadway or Sycamore? I guess the question is there a way to,
diverting
full runoff happen, upgrade, and then truncate that discharge pipe somewhere else, and tie into something up at a further grade?
I mean, that is part of, I'm not an expert, but as I said, that whole area on 611 were homes, they were houses, it was grass. So the water was not pouring in 58 years ago or even 40 years ago, the way it is now because of everything that has been developed up at 611. Everything at 611 and Sycamore is now pouring in and is now, that's why we have Fireball, that's why we have, all kinds of trash and debris that we will go out probably once a week, or especially after a heavy rain, we will go as soon as we can walk on the lawn and fill trash bags filled with just everybody's litter.
Yeah.
That I commend you for saying you can't, handle stupidity.
It's always gonna be there. So, and I think, not to badmouth the previous boards that were up here, but the reason why we have, you were here when we were scrutinizing Wild 10, right? Like, we're asking them all the questions we could possibly ask them about stormwater management from their site. We're analyzing the best we can to rectify a situation that if it was any of us sitting up here, it never probably would have happened, because we understand that it's not an ideal scenario. The issue with all of these existing conditions that were fine 40 years ago but aren't fine anymore is finding that intervention that makes a good condition now. And unfortunately, money does come into it, right? I mean, I know we all pay taxes here, and I don't think any one of us pays enough taxes where my one tax could fix that problem, right? So it's a collective organization to figure out how to fix this. And so money is an important aspect of this. But clearly, we're deliberating to the point where we are trying to find a solution for this. And I can sense in the passion from all three of you that, yeah, this is a huge deal. And when people are bold enough to come out here and present something so fervently, we consider it a big deal. So we're trying. But yeah, I totally empathize with you, because you're right. You're just in a spot where everything else is coming to you. And how do you fix that when you have years of development around you? So it sounds like step one is to dredge the silt.
Agreed.
Step two is a perk test to see what we could do there.
And replace the inlet with a sump inlet.
Yeah.
Maybe the one across the street also.
Now, you can only dredge to where you have a fall, where it's going to leave the back of property and continue. Am I right? Because if you don't, it's just going to flood and back and go out towards the houses. That's why if you dredge it, okay? If the back of the property where you're dredging is the same height or higher, okay?
Then the
That water is going to sit in there, and it's going to even push it quicker towards the houses. So that's why the fall is so important.
I don't see how it's gonna push it quicker. If you create a void that's gonna hold water, and then it'll dissipate, and some of it will continue to run off like it does now.
It sounds like though, for the time being, the best we can do without further intervention and study is to move the standing water further back into the property through the dredging and hope that it starts to percolate.
I mean, I think that if you dredge it, like Kevin said, there's more available volume for the water. So it's not gonna be less water on your properties, it's just concentrated in an area that affects less square feet of your property. So you'll still be wet, but you know, maybe you're only wet 3 to 5 feet wide for this area rather than like the entire backyard, because right now it's hitting that wall, it's spreading out, and it's affecting a lot more. There's 3 inlets in that intersection, Kevin. Are there inlets that connect?
There's two inlets, one across the street from each other.
And then there's one in front of their house, so 3 total, I think.
There might be 3, I thought there was only 2. But,
There's 2 on one on each side of
that's what he said, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one for here, so.
Oh.
Yeah, and then, there's one at Broadway and Sycamore, and then there's one at, further up Sycamore towards Easton Road. Yeah, I wasn't counting this one, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, so to Anthony's point about catching it uphill, unconventional, but an underground stormwater basin in Sycamore that caught all the water that is running down that way gets caught and slowly metered out to reduce the rate of flow to the.
You mean in the street?
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
street,
it's just-
under the street, I should say.
Right. Like we do with all shopping centers.
Just
now.
like the 72-hour rule.
I really, in my mind, like, you know, I don't do what you do, so all I can do is just come up with ideas and see if they stick. But I don't see how you do any kind of intervention that's not a tank that doesn't create an issue somewhere else at somebody else's property. Because you don't, like, to your point, you don't have the outfall, you don't have a clear path. The best you could get a clear path is so far away that you're tying into other basin or retention zones that are not designed for the capacity. So you have to slow down the rate of travel and catch it.
So the issue with that is all this silt that we're looking at,
Yeah.
right? That ends up in a tank.
Yeah, but we're talking about a pump, we're talking about a pit to scoop out. So, I mean, what's the difference if you put a tank in there with a manhole?
You would have to do that.
Yeah.
But try to desal everything before it got there, so you're done.
Right.
I think there's a lot of different solutions.
The reason you don't put the basins under the street is because there's generally a lot of other utilities in there. And you need to be able to to get the volume, you need to be able to lay the pipes next to each other with some separation and whatever. But if you had a long run of Sycamore that was
Totally free.
yeah, or a part of it was. Then the other issue is like, for those detention basins to work, the pipes have to be flat. So if like Sycamore towards Easton Road changes in elevation by 5 feet, and you start on this side and you gotta lay the pipe flat, well now all of a sudden, like when you get over here, your excavation is
9 foot
15
deep.
feet. That's what, I mean, those are the reasons why you don't really see those in streets a lot.
Yeah.
No.
Good points.
But if you, there was enough flat area at the intersection of Broadway and Sycamore, and there that was relatively utility-free, then, you know, your intersection could be a network of pipes.
Could you do it, so that's a viable option, could you do it on the homeowner's property with with an easement? And have it at the end of the outfall?
No, you can't put a buried tank in the sewer easement. It won't.
Well, no, an easement between the property.
I think that,
That's where the sanitary runs.
That's sanitary reservoir?
Yep.
yeah, and burying anything in their their properties are far enough downhill that burying anything, you wouldn't be able to get a gravity drain out of it to daylight anywhere.
Got it, okay, so that's the same problem, the outfall we're talking about.
So we definitely have to dig to the bottom of that pipe. And, I mean, we can't not do that, right?
I don't see a negative at all to desilting that area between where the pipe comes out of the ground.
The discharge, right?
Yep, and wherever on their property, you're gonna start to not be affecting trees by digging
Right.
in the roots and stuff. Because if you, even like, if you got a big tree and you got and you dig right next to it, even if you dig down like 6-8 inches to put a, say, sidewalk in, you're damaging those roots and those trees.
The only big trees that are there that are subject to damage are street trees. And they're like in front, so you could have minimal excavation there. Yeah, that guy right there.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're, so I don't see a negative to removing that silt. When you remove the silt, I would probably put some riprap back or something that's gonna like protect against erosion, future, erosion of the area.
And your little vault.
And, yeah,
Clean that vault.
replace that in.
Right.
That's out the street.
Yeah. I think you should price that out for us, get that little.
Start there.
Dave El Sear knows what we would do there, and he has a supplier that shouldn't be hard.
Okay.
Yeah, you did take a look at it already.
All right, so it gets thrown to him for pricing.
Yeah.
Okay. Go there with it. So what they will, go ahead, you want to?
Yeah, well, so next month we'll have those estimates.
Yeah, we'll have the pricing for us and stuff to look at, to put a vault in and de-silt along between the houses, the best we can to the bottom of the pipe for right now. Okay? Okay?
You know, for the record, it's been so many years, this is the closest we've ever got. So
Exactly.
It's been literally decades and decades and decades.
All right, so someone will be in touch with you as far as permissible levels of making a swale. I know that I talked to your husband already and to you about, you guys actually chopped down that row of hedges. He said you were happy to see those go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, very good.
Just to confirm, will it then be standing water there still?
It can't stand for too long. We're not allowed to tolerate that.
Yeah, what we're trying to figure out is when we look at digging it, we will dig down to see if the water percolates. Will it seep into the ground at a certain level, certain depth? So that study will be done when they do this.
And that ultimately is the main challenge of this, right? Because you're creating a path of water. You don't know if the ground can handle that water. And the last thing we want to do is clear something up, move it somewhere else to create the same problem for you and potentially the neighbors behind you and the neighbors next to you. So yeah, we got some good brains on this. He's on it, and we're
Yeah, piping it somewhere else, we could be talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we're just trying to come up with something that will clean the water and move it at a, let's say off the property, but still at a slow pace. That's what we're really looking to do in what we're speaking of right now.
excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
to our attention.
You sure if you go back to 1965, you'll find those?
So I wasn't born yet. Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda.
Reports, isn't it?
Is that it? Yeah. Code enforcement, departmental reports, public works, departmental reports. Neither of those directors are with us this evening. We're going to table those. We'll have both months read next month. And we'll go right into the engineering report.
Thanks, Kevin.
We already started on.
Yeah. So my June 2023 report's in your packets. I don't really have much to add. I will say that the Carson Simpson Farm Stream Bank Stabilization Project is essentially complete at this juncture. They need to, some of the live staking that is going to establish the bank and protect the bank has to go in when the stakes are dormant, which is between November 1st and April 1st. So right now what's going to happen is the contractor's going to mat and seed everything. And then their landscape contractor's going to come back post November 1st and finish up by installing the live stakes.
So Jim, of course, the last couple of weeks has been wonderful for construction, but what do you think the rain did today? I mean, I guess things are pretty stabilized now?
Yeah, I think that the matting was in, and they would need rain anyways to get the cover crop to seed. So
yeah.
That should be good. And, you know, I think it looks good. It's certainly an improvement, and there's no sense in pushing them to put these live stakes in outside of that prescribed time period, because all we would be is in some kind of argument later on if they don't, you know, make it, and then who's paying to redo it. So I think it makes a lot of sense to wait till November, and, you know, they can do them then.
Yeah, there's some pretty big boulders there, but the water probably made it to the top today. When I came down at 5:30 to get here, it was cresting on the other side of the road. I thought it might even come up to the road. It was raining that hard in there because everything's so hard from
Yeah,
the rain
a
in 8
lot of
weeks.
runoff.
So, but I can't imagine it would have moved any of those boulders. It was pretty well rocked in. It looks good.
So, okay, thank you for that. I have a couple questions. Where are we at with the Olive Garden?
Looks like they're framing the building.
Okay. I mean, are we on schedule?
Passed it today. Yeah, I haven't heard anything negative about the site work. We met with their landscape contractor out there about a week ago to talk about some selective clearing and supplementing that has to happen in some of those buffer areas. And they're okay with that. And they also have a question about removing some trees that are encroaching on that right-of-way or the easement area that goes out to Sycamore.
Right.
To which I told them that those trees are not within the LOD, they're not on the property even. So they have to talk to the owner of that property about getting those trees removed. But it's really just ones that like are right up against and leaning over that access area.
Okay. The fence for the library education center, do you know, do you have any updates on that?
We staked out the property line, and it's my understanding that the library was going to select a contractor based on their proposals that they had. So there should be no question about where the property line is, and the fence company can put the fence on on that line. Is that, Matt, did you see where the property line was staked?
Yeah, yeah.
I expected that's ready to go, right?
So, yeah.
We had 3 bids, we voted on one.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions for Jim? Any questions on the landscape report?
No.
Anything you think needs to be mentioned here, Jim? If not,
Just here to answer questions. We did I had a meeting with Emily and the site contractor and design engineer for Fair Hill Commons. We've approved a field change. Essentially, all they're doing is moving plant material that, was proposed in certain parts of the site to other parts of the site. But at the end of the day, they still meet all the requirements of the ordinance, so there was no real need to bring that to the board. But that construction is moving along pretty nicely, I think.
They trying to open it in September? Or is it September? Yeah.
Yeah, and that sounds about right. I mean, at this point, there were a lot of utilities, there's a lot of utilities on that site, and a lot of them were maybe not in exactly the same spot that they anticipated them to be in, so now they're coming in to try to plant all these trees, and they're like, oh, we can't plant those on an electrical duct bank or whatever, so that's we're just kind of moving them around. But yeah, no, it looks pretty good.
that was the other question I had. What seems to be the delay with the Chipotle open up? Where does that?
I don't know. I mean, the delay for Chipotle wasn't site related, so I'm not sure.
That's fine.
What the building.
Today they were removing, all the fencing's removed. I saw a dumpster there. It looks like they're finishing up the inside fit out.
Okay. All right. Next piece on the agenda. Any question or comments? Engineer report or landscape architect's report? Hearing none, we'll go to the next report. We got traffic.
No Anton.
Is that?
I said no Anton.
No Anton. I think we had enough of a traffic discussion already. But while we're on traffic, why don't you tell us about the Turnpike meeting?
The Turnpike meeting, the one in Harrisburg?
No, didn't you go to a,
Oh, the Turnpike Interchange Group. Okay, they're Turnpike. Well, yeah, so they did have a meeting. And the way these meetings are structured is we meet, and then each of the municipalities, and there's 2 developers in that group as well, provide updates of what's going on. So really we're coordinating and informing each other of the projects that are going on. Really the only item of business that was conducted was developing the RFP for the consulting engineer. If you remember, that's really why there needed to be a cost. Each of the municipalities contributed was $10,000, was to pay for this consulting engineer. So they've developed an RFP. Montgomery County took the lead. Developed an RFP, we reviewed the RFP, felt comfortable with it. It's gonna go hit the street, might have already gone out. And Montgomery County, I think we still need to finalize this, but I think what a lot of our preference would be is let Montgomery County make the decision, because too many of the other municipalities have interactions with these consulting firms. So if you let Montgomery County, they're a little more of the objective entity. And you don't want the appearance of one municipality selecting their own consulting engineer, so to speak. So that's really the big item of business. So probably the next meeting will be finding out who the successful bidder is.
So one of the questions we asked you to take to that meeting was the commitment to the 4 lanes in each direction.
I don't think you're going to get that support. I don't think that would be one of their top projects. They're going to be prioritizing their projects. And if you remember, Willow Grove Interchange is one of them. That's in their top tier. I don't think they're opposed to that, but I don't think that's going to be one of their top issues to use their resources to lobby for that.
My question was, when we originally did the Montgomery County Turnpike Corridor study, 4 lanes was in there with a year involved. And what happened? How did they decide that they could put other assets in that right of way where those lanes would be required?
I think that's probably a Turnpike question, and I can follow up with the Turnpike. I don't know if this group, Turnpike's not part of this group.
I understand that.
But I don't know if they would know those specifics, but maybe we could ask the Turnpike Commission. See, that's one that I think the 4-lane, I'm not so sure you're gonna get state funding for that. I suspect it's gonna be Turnpike money and maybe federal money. And again, I don't think this group, we talked about it at the meeting, not super in depth because there didn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in that as a priority, but I don't think anyone's opposed to it.
So
They told us it would be 2035. Well, not us, the whole thing. 2035, they would have 4 lanes in each direction. We've never heard anything since then.
Right, so when did the Welsh Road interchange become a priority of more importance than 4 lanes from this particular committee?
I can't answer when it was,
but you need to ask that committee, and you need to bring that back to us. As far as, hey, we're still on the understanding that 4 lanes in each direction is part of what the Montgomery County Turnpike Corridor study identified.
Yeah, I think
along with the Welsh Road interchange,
right,
the Willow Grove interchange, and the Virginia Drive interchange.
Yeah, I think what this group's focus is trying to identify those priorities and projects that are doable and affordable. 4-laning those long stretches of, I think, and I'm speaking for the committee, I don't know if it's the way they would all say it, but I think it probably is. You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's probably not something that's, while it may be desirable, it's probably not something that's feasible to put a lot of our resources into that for a project that is realistically not going to happen anytime soon. So do you put all your resources toward the Willow Grove interchange and the Welsh Road, and those, I think that's their mindset, is to focus on the things that are a little more reachable. So it's not they're opposed to it, just not.
It's already happening in Bucks County. And one of the things that we've constantly been told by Matt Edmonds and most of Montgomery County was, Bucks County doesn't play nice, so we don't want to have a discussion with them. But they're getting plenty done. They're getting plenty of state money that we're not getting. And I mean, do I know that factually? I don't know how long ago they decided to put hundreds of, probably a couple $1 million in the County Line Road. Did you say that? I mean, County Line Road is going to be done across the entire Bucks County, except for that one piece where we proposed an interchange.
So just to be clear, so your question is, can we make this a higher priority?
For this committee.
Okay, can we make it a higher priority? Okay, I can ask, I've kind of already asked, I'll ask it in a slightly different way, but I think that's I think it's what I've already heard.
Low-hanging fruit. We've got estimates for Welsh Road interchange without buying the land at over $100 million.
The Welsh Road, it's estimated a little less than that, but you're in the ballpark. I think they said it was like 70 million or so.
Without land acquisition.
I don't remember if it was with or without land acquisition, but it was about $70 million. Willow Grove, of course, is about 15, which is like chump change. But 4-laning is hundreds of millions of dollars maybe,
How many miles is that $100 million?
I don't remember, but it's miles, not just,
But what I'm saying is the Turnpike's already doing that in Bucks County. They're blowing these bridges up, they're making them wider. We know that we have 2 bridges right there that have to get done. And they're failing. They're failing as far as all the PennDOT studies go. So we don't want to leave PennDOT out of it. We don't want to leave the Turnpike out of it. And, we're getting very concerned that the vision of this committee is steered towards Walsh Road, where
yeah, I don't think that's accurate. I think if there's a bias, I think there's a bias towards trying to do projects that can get done. And I think that's I think they really want to see things finished. This is actually to our advantage when it comes to the Willow Grove interchange, because of all these projects you're talking about, that's the most doable. And we've already got.
We've gotten funding.
Yeah, we've gotten like, what, $3 or $4 million. So, I think from their perspective, focusing on that 4-lane is just not a good use of when there's so many other projects that are more doable and they're more.
So, like, the Turnpike paid for a new bridge in Willow Grove. And when they did that, they designed it at a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. And they had to come back and spend another thousands and thousands of dollars to properly engineer it to a 70-mile-an-hour highway.
Sure.
So, if an interchange is going to get built, can those ramps and project a 4-lane highway, or we're going to fit it to 3?
Well, I think, for example, on the Welsh Road, if we ever got to the point where we're doing that, it's clearly you would build that interchange with the 4-laning in mind, with the potential of actually 4-laning that. I think that goes without saying. You'd probably just make your off ramps a little wider and you get your land acquisition.
So the Turnpike just permitted a structure to go in the way of that. There's a above-ground structure that is in the way of that potential.
It's not even finished yet.
So, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong because I wasn't around for this part, but the Welsh Road interchange, was that concept conceived after the proposition of 4 lanes? Or was it something that was concurrently being reviewed? And I asked that question.
It came afterwards.
Okay, so I asked that question because is there data that shows that a new interchange at Welsh Road and the expansion of the Willow Grove interchange reduces the need for Turnpike width expansion?
I don't think so. I think there's clearly a need for 4 lanes.
But it's volume everywhere. It has nothing to do with not reduction of, or not reducing volume between specific locations.
We had a hard time selling Willow Grove because there was no place for cars to go, but it makes Eastern Road safer.
Right. Okay. Right, yeah, I was trying to think if there was another way to frame the question to see why.
Well, Maryland Road is.
That's not even being talked about anymore.
That's strictly being driven by the 2 developers. That's where it came from.
In Upper Dublin.
Yeah, they own from Abington all the way to Maple Glen. Every commercial property was 2 developers, pretty much. So that's where it's being driven from. That's where it came from. We heard about the 4 lanes years and years ago.
Yeah, but I guess the thought process being, right, like why is that 4-lane expansion not even being talked about on the?
Because of road.
Yeah, okay. So then we're proposing other options that are going to exacerbate a condition that wasn't fixed before.
Just like this committee and our staff worked hard to go find the funding.
Yeah.
And then we had to sell that.
Right. Okay.
And it's come from other sources besides the Turnpike.
Yeah, no, I now understand your displeasure.
Okay.
And because we see, when we see the wide bridges in Bucks County that is 70 feet from the Turnpike, they're building them that wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just the bridge abutment, that's it.
Yep.
Other than that, it just The road, there is no road, it's grass.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on traffic? How are we doing with, because McMahon's been handling our trail?
Which trail?
Pico Trail, Pico Property Trail.
I think you're preparing another grant request. I forget
By
the
the end of
source.
July, right?
Yeah, so if you remember last year, we didn't get it because they didn't think we had the agreements in place, and of course we do, and they said, well, okay, submit again next year, implying, of course, they can never tell you you're gonna get it, but they were implying that our submission would be stronger. So that's in the works. I think that's the end of July that gets submitted. I know the county, I'm sorry?
I think it was Pico that wanted a bridge on the right-of-way over a tributary, and we asked for a buried pipe that would make it more affordable.
Okay. Oh, you mean on the power line trail? Yeah.
All right, I don't have anything else. Anybody else have anything else? Traffic?
The AC should be.
Going too fast here. Still not getting good at this. All right, Eastern Montgomery County Turnpike, EAC and Historical Commission up next.
So one of the things we did talk about in our last meeting was the fact that the library property has been surveyed, the bid has been accepted from Main Street Fence, permit has been obtained from the township, so hopefully we'll see something within the next couple months. Obviously, we talked about the plastic bag ban. We also talked about purchasing a new video picture frame, which we used to have over at the library, that showed our events and also announced events, and it seems to have stopped working and is not repairable, so we're looking into buying another one because a lot of people seem to pay attention to it because it was a moving display. Also, we already did clean out the dog park of invasives, the little wetland area. We did that on Saturday. And in July, we hope to do the stream banks and the trees in Veterans Park, again, removing invasive plants. And that's about it.
I remember cleaning out the dog park. Did we lose a tree there in that wetland area?
Not in the wetland area itself that I could see.
Would you propose a new tree there or no?
In the wetland itself, no.
Okay.
It's pretty dense in there. Definitely a lot of poison ivy. I will be breaking out soon.
I just thought there would be a species of tree that would be appropriate for that wetland area.
I said it's a pretty small area. There's quite a few trees in there already. There were some nice woolly sedge and some rushes in there.
I thought we lost a mature tree in there.
Just outside of the wetland, there's a big stump. I don't know when that went away, but it's not actually in the wetland.
And where are we at with the possibility of reforesting? We talked about a couple areas over there near Mill Creek.
We're working kind of with the Shade Tree Commission and Pat on that. He would like to see it from the dog park, from the fence up toward actually Main Street fence.
Right.
That pathway, he'd like to see that, but now is not when you would plant trees, of course.
No, but it's a good time to identify the areas.
Yeah. And that was one that he was very interested in getting that, a lot more trees in there.
Anybody have questions for Lynette? Yes, thanks for all your hard work with the plastic bag ban.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. You have my report from our meeting in the beginning of the month. Any questions you have for me? I can highlight for you that we have 2 events coming up. They'll both be in the fall newsletter, which I know is the copy's due in by the end of the week. That would be September 12th, a UMHA and UMHC conjoined event. It'll be held at the library. All residents are invited, but particularly we're looking to bring our home inventory group in, talking again about deed research on their properties. Some of our research was more anecdotal. The more we can look at things, and we certainly can more than we could 20 years ago, the better we know. And so we're wanting to connect people not only to, just the age of their properties, but who lived there. Part of our community development as to why our historical properties are important. So that would be, again, on the 12th from 7 to 9, and it is being run through the Recorder of Deeds. That would be Jean Sorg and her office, and they're working with us hand in hand to customize this. So we will be talking about our own properties, not just a property in Montgomery County and using it as the template. And we're going to invite people to bring their laptops so that they can engage as well if that's what they want to do, or they can just simply listen along the way. And there'll be a directed letter to the inventory members about their participation and invitation. Also, that will allow us, secondary part, to update ourselves on their connectivity to the inventory itself. Do you even know that your house is historical? Because we know that, people have sold their homes and we have not been aware of every house sale. And that will loop back again to Paul, not here tonight, but to the code enforcement, so that Paul will be able to have an updated list every year as to, anything that might come across his desk, so that he's not taken by surprise, nor are we taken by surprise when an historical inventory member decides to do something, so, as we have been in the past. So that said, the secondary one would be in conjunction with Parks and Rec, October 28th. It's our second annual Spooky at the Farmstead event. We will probably look again at the paranormal group that read the property the first time. Will be additional spooky stories about our township and people who lived here and where they lived. Family friendly, bring your kids. It's not that kind of scary. It's historical, but it's hysterical at the same time. We did have a lot of fun. Food, so that will be a major event. And we will again request that we ask the fire company so that we can have a fire ring. We don't want to call it a fire pit. People are not being encouraged to get too close, but a fire ring just because it's a cool thing to have. And people love that. And if it's a little chilly, it'll make it lovely. Good ambiance. And we do need ADA approved porta potties. We know we need to be paying attention to that, so we're going to be looking at that, and I'm not too sure where to go to do that. I'd be happy, full septic, full water on my own property. So, the major players, we know who they are ourselves, so I'd be happy to make that first inquiry and then present that to whom? To Pat? Okay. And I'll go in that direction, unless you have...
List of your total event stuff. Just put that on a list of all your event stuff.
So those 2 events, and again, they will both be highlighted in our newsletter piece that's in the fall newsletter. The other thing is we're going to replace any downtown banners. that have faded, fallen, et cetera, et cetera. I did put a call in to David Elsier. I have not heard back, because sometimes people have returned them and they're actually just sitting there rolled up. So, but there was a light that was taken out on Easton quite a while ago now. There's traffic accident out there in front of the airport, and that never went back up. I guess the hardware, wasn't salvageable, and so that didn't happen. So we need hardware as well, and we are aware that the cost factor on hardware has gone up. So,
there was a collision?
Yeah, they took out the light post there, one of our nice light posts. That's quite a while ago.
Why are we worried about costs? Is that an insurance item?
I had remarked about it and put it in, if you will, at the time. So I'm not sure how that was handled.
Okay.
Took a while for the light to go back up because there was apparently pandemic change,
Well, I appreciate you
Issues.
revisiting that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I will definitely do that. Thank you, Commissioner. Other than that, just to let you know that Alan Sentman has access to information on the 2026 ideas planning, pre-planning in Philadelphia. So it's probably going to come out of Philadelphia and emanate out to Bucks, Berks, and here to Montgomery County. It seems that's how it's going to go. So that as we're looking at our birthday party for the United States, we're going to probably be looking to the city, but we want to have some special things happening out here as well. So we have to formulate that. It's 2023, we're getting late. For anybody who remembers our own 300th, there's a lot that went into that, back when we did that in 2011. So we know what it's like to have a birthday party, even if it's just us. So ours was amazing, and we want to at least have a few of those amazing events here as well for the whole country. And we have no meeting in July. It's the 4th of July, and we decided not to meet. So we will meet August 1st. And again, as always, and we invite the whole community to come. We're always in the library, the first Tuesday of every month, except when it's the 4th of July. And then, of course, you'll be talking about Juneteenth? I don't need to say that. Somebody here talk about Juneteenth?
Do it now.
Oh.
Saturday.
Who knows more about it than I do? Saturday at the YMCA, Davisville Road, vendors, again, food, entertainment, et cetera. Time, though, I'm not sure, 11 a.m. to, somebody help me here? Nobody knows?
I don't. I know it was 11 o'clock.
It starts at 11,
Yes.
okay. Consult the Historical Commission page. I will definitely post it there.
I just got the phone number for the woman at the Y yesterday. So
Okay.
I wanted to get the accurate information from her.
Yeah, I didn't know why we were not doing something in the community as a whole, and then I saw that the YMCA's had taken it over, and since we had one, I made the assumption that you all decided that would be our...
It didn't happen that way, but we're happy that YMCA is involved.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions or concerns? Commissioner Brucey?
No,
Okay.
I unfortunately missed the last meeting.
We missed you, yes.
Yeah, I am. But no, good summary, great progress. It's great to see 2 planned events for the year. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and we passed that MOU for the W is passed, so.
Yes, and we're waiting, just to put cross the T on that, we're waiting for the DiMarzio family, just to have the last word on exactly what's said on that sign, which is fine, because it's been rewritten like 4 times, and, if they have any thoughts, we can adapt to that one too. That's just great. So,
I think we're ready to do that, because the agreement has all been signed.
yes.
So I think we just
Sorry, I
need
missed
to-
the meeting.
I'm sorry?
Last Monday, I missed the meeting. Yes.
Yeah, so we just need to, I think there had already been a location that
Yep.
you had
The
conversation.
tree, that little tree that no one thinks is
So I think we just need to
that important.
finalize that, and then finalize a sign,
Yep.
and then we can install.
Oh, Mr. Earl's here.
So you're saying Jerry wanted to look at the final wording?
We were going to give the DeMarcia family one more shot at the wording, so, you know.
So can you do that?
I did, I sent it to him.
Oh,
I'm just
perfect.
waiting.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely. So,
So I guess as soon as he gives a green light, just let us know, and then we'll get it.
well, the next green light will then go to Treasurer Signs and to Dave at the same time, and to you.
Okay.
Okay, so all communication will be closed. Good?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Juneteenth is 11 to 3 on Saturday, June 17th.
Oh, okay, it is to 3, okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks, take care.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I would like to make an announcement about a zoning hearing meeting on June 22nd in this room at 7:30 for the property 2430 Wyandotte Road in Willow Grove. Applicant seeks from Upper Moreland Township Code, which does not permit firearm transfer or equivalent within the S Small Limited Industrial District. Applicant seeks a variance for second primary use of a single parcel of ground. Property located in the S Small Limited Industrial District. That hearing is 7:30, the 22nd. I have one announcement, one topic I'd like to discuss. The Sewer Authority gave estimates to the residents in Ward 1. What's the name of that street? Is it? Manor, that's it, yeah, Manor Road.
Manor had been built, yeah.
And Inman Terrace, it all intersects there. I thought the numbers were large and that it could be done much more economically. We have another group of neighbors that are interested in trying to connect to the sanitary sewer in Ward 5. And that's from the property 2800 Byberry Road, going east towards Homestead Park. And there's about 4 or 5 residents there that are interested.
Are their systems failing, or are they just interested in?
A couple of systems are failing. And I think they're all interested. I've said this before, it's time for this township and the sewer authority to get the 537 plan completed for all of these properties. And how that happens is we mandate it, correct me if I'm wrong, the township says you have to do it, and then we split the cost with the sewer authority.
Will they be contacting me or?
We've had the conversation about it. I think 3 years ago, we budgeted money for it, we didn't.
No, I mean these residents over off.
Oh, yeah, I told them to contact you.
Okay, and then we would, yeah.
They're ready to go, but I cautioned them with going through the same process that the people in Manor did, because they wanted like $40,000 for each house.
I guess, yeah.
It doesn't cost that much. You know, a conventional system, digging through rock, yeah, it would cost that much money. You don't have to do that anymore. And so those residents will be in touch with you collectively, and we can set up an appointment, and then they can even come here. But the 537 plan is for the entire township, wherever we don't have it.
Did we ever get a price of what that was?
The 537 plan?
Yeah. I don't remember.
We did not. We did not. I would guess it's 80 grand.
Probably somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. It could be split between them. But what that does is it doesn't give you speculation and run out and find an engineer. It's okay.
We have a lot of ARPA money. That's infrastructure for the township.
We'll talk about that. It's coming up.
Yes, it is. I have one announcement.
Okay.
All right, the only thing I wanted to bring up, I did talk to the board I just wanted to put it out there. We're going to have gates at the trash dumpsters or whatever on Easton Road on their plans. They have met with us. We will change that. This board has agreed individually to put a mural on the wall. They're not going to do the gates. They're going to do plantings, a mural inside of it to hide the trucks and stuff. The mural part of it is kind of the problem because we all look at murals and art differently. So what I am going to do is ask Matt and Adam from Federal to set up a date and invite Ray Stahl from the Historical Association and Udo Marin from the Historical Commission. I want those two to be on this little committee as well as our board. And we're going to meet with Federal to see what the mural, what we would like to see. We'll put that group together with a meeting with their artist. Just wanted to make the comment so everybody knew what was going on with it. Commissioners do. That's it.
So in order to streamline that process, we might want to talk about how we want to agenda that meeting, because if it is an artist looking at prospective options, I don't think it would be beneficial for them to come with options for us to judge them.
They are not coming with options.
Okay, all right. So
There's no options. It's, and it'll, most likely, there will be a Zoom part of this.
Yeah, okay.
Because trying to get everybody together, we will probably do it on a Zoom.
I'm wondering if there's any homework that we task Ray and Udo with for the historicism of the property or something to bring, so that way we can just come with homework, engage that artist and that Federal team, have them run off with it, and then we can have a review meeting.
And if they have a couple different, because Udo's an architect, so he gets it. And Ray's been around forever, so I like that decision. So, yeah, we will, I guess it's probably easier for you to make the contacts and stuff, and I'll give you Adam's, you probably already have it, but Adam's contact, and he will make sure his artist is available on night that we can do it.
Okay.
Because everybody's looks at everything differently. Some say, I don't like it too bright, this one's too dull. We do it at one shot, so it has to be done because it has to be ordered by the artists and everything else to have it done, because they will probably open in September, the marshals, and we will have to do a conditional approval.
Temporary occupancy.
Temporary occupancy, because they even if we get this done in the next couple of weeks, they have to redesign that portion. But I just wanted it publicly to everybody know what we were doing. That's it.
Very good. Nothing.
Any other commissioners?